Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody on YouTube, everybody on TikTok. Let's see who our first TikTok person is. Always like to see Molly. You are the first TikTok person to join us. Thank you. YouTubers, hello. Facebookers, Twitterers, everybody, welcome. We love to have you guys start off by just saying where you're from, if you're comfortable doing so. Just as we take a minute for folks to kind of join in. Ohio, Canada. In the background, my dog will wanting to be playing with the neighbors because unfortunately my neighbors always pick this time to play in the hall with their dog. So I will be screaming at her in a minute. Who else we got here? New Mexico. Excellent. We're going to wait a second for you guys to weigh in, say where you're from. I got a new little microphone cord, so I'm back using my microphone I have a really big honking mic for my YouTube folks, my big, whatever, Mike. But I've got a smaller one for the TikTokers that one of the wires was bad and whatever. So now it's back. Hey, Sasha. It's like doing Zoom for work. You've got the dog in the background. But anyway, yeah, so I've got the mic and I'm happier. Even though you guys thought it was fine on TikTok, I like having the good mic. I think it's just a better sound. So anyway, yeah, keep introducing yourselves, guys. Maybe we'll go for already had a sorting? Yeah, thank you. My favorite. We're going to go for maybe another half minute just to let more people join in on TikTok and YouTube both. And then we're going to jump right in. I've got a number of updates today. Today is a pretty good news day, meaning, happy news, upbeat news, not as many bad stories. There may be one or two bad stories, but it's pretty good, actually. So, like I said, we'll take another half minute for folks to come. We're almost there. And then we will join in. I'll give you the news update for maybe 15, 20 minutes or so, 20 minutes probably. And then we'll do the question and answer like we always do, which will take us to around quarter after the hour, meaning this will go for about an hour and 15. And for anybody interested, we hang out afterwards. So, and I did hear about the missile strike in Russia. We're going to be talking about it. If it is a missile strike, we're not quite sure what it is. All right, guys, let me jump right in. So thank you as always for following me. If you're not following me, follow me. As always, on TikTok, you can post your questions with that question feature wherever it is, and it allows me to pull it up at the bottom, and I can see all of your questions listed, which is nice. So I will access your questions that way. For the YouTubers, excuse me, my allergies are going nuts today. For the YouTubers, you can put your questions in the comments. As always, if you want to do super chat questions, I will get to those first. Thank you for that. I will get to those first in large part because you're making a donation when you're doing that, which I appreciate. But it's also a way of guaranteeing that I get to your questions because there are way too many questions combined between YouTube and TikTok. So that's one way of making sure I get to your questions. Otherwise, let's get to the news, folks. So I wanted to start with one of the funnier stories, though. I got another one. Oh, wait, I hope the other one. Oh God! Wait, did I put the other one on here? Oh no! I've got a hilarious other story, but I think I can tell you it. Yes, I can tell you it from heart. Anyway, I'm going to start with the two funny stories. So the first one that cracked me up: the most popular cartoon show, not the most popular, a very popular cartoon TV show in Russia. It's in my my TikTok. I just did a video. It's something like Masyanya is the name, and the main character is Masyanya. Well, they devoted their latest episode, the lesson I'm calling it, latest episode to the invasion of Ukraine. And in the episode, now mind you, this is Russia. This is Russia that is a dictatorship. The characters refer to Vladimir Putin, Russian President Putin, as Adolf Hitler in the episode. The show shows multiple videos of actual Ukrainian towns and cities blown up by the Russians. And remember, the Russians are saying, they're not doing any of this. And the show ends with the main character, whose name is something like Masyanya. The main character brings mind you, this is Russian TV. The main character brings a Japanese sword and places it at Putin's feet and says, you may commit suicide in the next 24 hours. Oh, I mean... This is right. Even in America, I could see getting into a lot of trouble by giving the sword and saying, here, this is so you can commit suicide. I mean, for a president, but in Russia, we're talking, this is a dictatorship, folks. That one cracked me up. The other story that cracked me up was Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations. I'm going to try to get his name right. Sergei Kislitsia. He's at the UN. I think it was today. The UN Security Council held a meeting talking about humanitarian problems in Russia. And he gets up to speak, and he starts his presentation by saying, at the outset, I would like to inform you that the demilitarization of Russia conducted by the Ukrainian army and supported by the entire Ukrainian people is well underway. I just thought, considering the circumstances, they've got such backbone, these people, and they've also got a real vicious sense of humor, the Ukrainians. They just crack me up. All right, let's jump into the serious news. So I'm going to start with a bold statement. The battle for Kiev, I'm already falling back to the old speech patterns. The battle for Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, is over. This was a very interesting analysis today by Phillips O'Brien, who is a professor at the University of St. Andrews. Very good military thinker. He's one of the sort of military posse I follow on Twitter who are really interesting. So current former military instructors like him. And what he's saying is that the Russian military is now burned out. They're burned out across the country. The Ukrainians put up way more fight than the Russians expected. And basically, these guys are just burned out. Now, specifically with relating to Kyiv, the capital, the Russian capital, we know that the Ukrainians have been doing a remarkable job pushing back on the Russians near the capital to the point now where the Russians are on the defensive, the Ukrainians are on the offensive, and the Ukrainians have not just pushed Russian troops further back, so now Kyiv is already out of artillery range. So the Russians can no longer just launch artillery at Kyiv. Their troops are too far. But the Ukrainians also have surrounded a lot of the Russian troops. 10,000 was the number that was being used before. And then for good measure, they also flooded the area. They've got a dam nearby, and the Ukrainians did something to the dam that they just flooded the plains. So the Russian troops, who were already having frostbite, half of them apparently have frostbite, don't have food and water. They've got water now, but don't have food and water, don't have gas for their cars, diesel. They don't have ammunition. As I've said before, because that 40-mile long convoy, the really scary convoy, the Ukrainians got that thing stuck and bam, didn't go anywhere. It's gone now. I mean, the Russians just lost the convoy. That means they lost all the food and water and everything else. So these troops are in a really bad state. And then just to add to it, they got flooded by the Ukrainians. So not only is it like, imagine walking through floodwaters, but your tank doesn't work in floodwaters, apparently. Who knew? So these troops are in real trouble. And what it looks like the Russians are probably going to do, the Russians, and I'm going to get to this next, this whole issue of, the latest peace negotiations and is there good news or not. But what the Russians claim today that, we are removing our troops from near Kyiv as a gesture of peace to aid the negotiations. Well, the better way of phrasing it is their troops are being removed from Kyiv by the Ukrainians, like the UN ambassador said. The Russian troops are being demilitarized by the Ukrainian troops. And the Russians are now trying to find a face-saving way of explaining to the people back home why it is the Russians are retreating from the attack on Kyiv, which we all know Putin had said in 3 days they were going to take Kyiv, and it's been 30 days now, right? So anyway, that's sorry, one thing. I'm checking out the notes here, but I'll get to that when after I'm finished with this topic. So, okay, so the thing is, any troops that are still combat ready that are in the Kyiv area, most of them are not, but any that are, the expert Phillips O'Brien thinks they are going to be moved to Donbass, which are those regions in the east that we always talk about. Remember how Russia stole Crimea, the region in the south, in 2014, and they want to steal the region in the east now, Donbass, which has a large ethnic minority of Russians, but that's not unusual for Ukraine. Kharkiv is Russian speaking too. But the Russians want to steal it and make it part of Russia. So what O'Brien was saying, he was saying a couple things. Okay, they're going to move the best troops they've got from Kyiv that are still combat ready to Donbass. At the same time, this means they're giving up on Kyiv. They're giving up on Odessa, which was also a huge issue, right? Because Odessa in the south, a very famous old cultural city of Ukraine, the plan was they were going to have some kind of amphibious assault, it seemed, and then they called it off, I think because everything else was going so badly. O'Brien said, then he said, it's going to be hard for them to take hold of the east because even if they do, how are they going to hold it? So in other words, they've lost Kyiv, they've lost Odessa, but they've got the eastern territories and then this corridor, right? Remember this corridor they're trying to get connecting the eastern territories to Crimea. That corridor contains the town of Mariupol, which is the town we're always talking about because it's getting bombarded, to death. There's 160,000 civilians there remaining. They haven't had food and water for 3 weeks. They haven't had heating, and it's been freezing. This is the city the Russians dropped the bomb on the theater that said children written outside. This is the city where the Russians bombed the maternity ward of the hospital. Right? So this town, Mariupol, has been in real trouble. Well, Mariupol is in that belt that the Russians are currently holding on to, although they haven't yet taken control of Mariupol. Well, what Brian is saying is it's going to be next to impossible for the Russians to hold on to these territories in the long term because, again, the Ukrainians are fighting so well. The Russian troops are simply going to get tired and demoralized. And at that point, it's not like you can just take a rest and fight again. And the same problem for Kyiv. The troops that are there, even if they don't get captured by the Ukrainians, it's not like they can just rest for a week and then they're better. He said he thinks, and this guy, like I said, is respected by a lot of folks, he thinks if the Russians have any desire to take Kyiv, the capital, or to hold on to these lands in the east that they're trying to grab, they're going to need to have a nationwide war footing where they have nationwide conscription. They have a nationwide draft. They get, million men drafted. They train them for a year. He said, then they've got to find money, which who knows where they're going to find money from because they've got to make all new equipment because their best equipment has been destroyed by the Ukrainians. It's a disaster for the Russians. The final caveat that we always make is the Russians have a lot of brass, a lot of machinery, right? They've got a lot of weapons, and they can still destroy Ukraine. They can still destroy a lot of the cities, destroy a lot of the civilians, and we know they don't have any qualms about doing so. So I'm saying this not with a grain of salt, but it's never as easy as it looks. Now, on the negotiation front, sip of water, and then we'll talk about the negotiations because you may have heard good news, but I don't think it's that good of news really. But both the Ukrainians and the Russians are saying, there was progress at the negotiations. Now, what they're defining as progress is the Russians said they didn't want Ukraine to join NATO, right? They didn't want Ukraine to have any foreign military advisors internally, any foreign military bases on their soil. It sounded like Ukraine also, for example, could no longer have NATO troops come and teach them how to use weapons, teach them, do training and things like this that we've done before. We've trained them how to use some of our weapons. So that's the first problem. Ukraine would vow neutrality. We kind of all thought that was going to happen anyway at this point. Crimea, the territory that's in the south of Ukraine that the Russians stole in 2014, the Ukrainians are willing to put that off for 15 years, which I was kind of surprised. And they said, we'll negotiate over the next 15 years over it. Kind of surprised about that, considering that's Ukrainian land the Russians stole. That sounded to me like hell of a concession, but who knows? They said the eastern Ukraine, the region the Russians are now going to be fighting in, and are now focusing their fighting in, and the Russians want to steal as part of Russia. That area will be dealt with in a subsequent summit meeting between Zelensky and Putin. This is the Ukrainian proposal. And the final point, which I think is really not doable, Ukraine keeps saying that that it will accept security guarantees from a number of countries, basically saying that if Russia or anybody invades Ukraine, these countries will go to war to protect Ukraine. Now, that's never going to happen. If there's one lesson we can all take away from the last month of fighting, it's that no one in the world wants to get involved in this war other than Russia and Belarus maybe. But that's it. No one wants to. Our governments have already said it's World War III if we get involved. So why would our government sign on to this treaty that would guarantee we have to go to war with Russia over Ukraine when we're not even willing to go to war with Ukraine over today? So I just don't. I don't see how that would ever work out. I wonder whether Zelensky isn't almost putting this out there as a rosy picture so that we almost have to be the ones who say, well, we wouldn't do that. And frankly, since so far Zelensky's winning, even though it will come at great cost, maybe he's in this for the long haul. Thank you, TikTok person. Maybe he's in it for the long haul. And I think Rachel had said, and is just kind of doing this as not a trial balloon, but basically just that, saying something where this will allow him to say he tried. But it sounds crazy to me, and I don't buy it. The other thing that kind of annoys me, and a number of the experts were talking about this morning on Twitter, is, what so much of this proposal is concessions from Ukraine. Where's the concession from Russia? I mean, where? There's no concession from. The only concessions Russia's making is dropping some of its initial demands, right? Because Russia, remember, it was going to denazify Ukraine and demilitarize, like Ukraine couldn't have an army. Well, okay, they're dropping that, but it's not really you're not giving anything up. They want Ukraine to basically write off Crimea for 15 years, right? They're saying that Ukraine can't join NATO, that Ukraine can't have these foreign military advisors. What is Russia giving up? Is Russia having to give up military pacts? Does Russia have to give up getting weapons, getting materials and things from other countries for its military? I mean, it just kind of bugs me. It bugs me. Exactly. I mean, Ryan Rarden just said Russia should lose its nukes. I mean, when you start a war illegally and then lose it, I don't think you get to take the high ground. And actually, O'Brien himself, the expert at the university I was telling you, he said just that. He said, at least as far as Kyiv goes, especially the capital, he goes, there is no negotiation for a ceasefire in Kyiv. All you're doing is letting the Russians off the hook so they can sneak away and maybe be able to regroup and come back another day. He goes, there's just no reason. You might as well just attack them. So anyway, that's the that's it. That's it for the updates on the negotiations. Those were sort of the big stories. I will tell some of the mods, just so you know, Jonathan Sargent, he's got a hold on his chat just to double check. Again, I don't know what the issues are here, but just so folks know, because sometimes I will say this for the moderators on TikTok, because we've had some trolls on YouTube, some bad people. A lot of bad people always come in on TikTok. It's clearly, sort of paid Russian people to come and cause trouble. So we've got our moderators doing work, and it's really hard for the moderators. Sometimes they're just going to block people incorrectly. It happens. I've done it before too. So, if it happens, let me know. I'll let folks know. But at least for the mods to see Jonathan Sargent and somebody else, I don't see it now. Somebody else had they were raising it as a concern as well, just to be aware. Okay, guys. So a couple other issues. Okay, nuclear weapons. So you know how Russia's been mouthing off about nukes, right? The last several weeks, and making all these comments about how they might use nuclear weapons and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, today, the spokesman for Putin actually backed off a little bit. He had done an interview with Christiane Amanpour of CNN this weekend, in which he still sounded like they might consider using them, although he did say only if Russia was facing an existential threat, which is already Russian military doctrine. Oh, I haven't seen the Ferris wheel before. That's cool. Thank you. Or Ferris wheel? Ferris wheel. Yeah, I think that's Ferris wheel. That's always been Russian military doctrine, that if the country is about to disappear, and the Americans are at the gates of Moscow, then they would use nukes. We know that. That's not news. But Putin was clearly trying to scare us. And frankly, he got Biden and a lot of other people scared about him using nukes. Well, now his spokesman says, Dmitry Peskov, that while Putin had spoken of possible use of nuclear weapons to respond to any threat, Peskov says, quote, no one is thinking about even about the idea of using a nuclear weapon with regard to the Ukrainian conflict. My favorite part, though, is Peskov then goes on to say that Russia's military is not targeting civilians in the war in Ukraine. So I'm going to wager that I'm not sure I can take what this guy says as being the legitimate truth, And the other thing, I will say this, the other thing with that comment, but also with Russia making these claims about its withdrawing from Kyiv as a gesture and all of this, the experts will tell you not to trust Russia. I mean, God, this goes back to Reagan. Ronald Reagan, his famous quote, and I used to know it in Russian. It was Zdovria Naprovnia or something like that. It meant trust but verify. And the idea is you really can't trust the Russians. The Russians lie. I mean, this is like what they do in politics and negotiations and everything else. They just lie and they cheat and they steal. Remember, they created those humanitarian corridors for the refugees to flee. And when the refugees started fleeing, they blew them up. And they did the same thing back in 2014 or so when they invaded Ukraine. They said, oh, we're going to let all the troops leave this one town. As long as the Ukrainian troops put their guns down, we'll let them leave. So the Ukrainian troops put their guns down, started leaving, and the Russians blew up 400 of them that were in the corridor the Russians said would be safe. This is what the Russians do. And Russia told us up until the moment they invaded that they weren't going to invade. Remember, they even mocked Biden. Oh, Biden's crazy. Biden says we're going to invade. So you can't trust them. So we should not trust them when they talk about withdrawing from Kyiv. And frankly, we should not trust them. Thank you for all the TikTok gifts coming in. We should not trust them when they say they're not going to use nuclear weapons. Who knows? Who knows? But don't trust these guys. Now, somebody on TikTok had mentioned at the very beginning of our talk about a possible Ukrainian missile hitting a Russian missile base. Well, what we know for sure, and this story just came out in the last couple hours, so it could even be more definite now that we're talking. But what we know for sure is that a Russian military base in the town of Belgorod, and if you look at the map, Belgorod is right across the Russian border from Kharkiv, which is that second largest city of Ukraine, northeastern Ukraine, near the Russian border, Russian-speaking people. My friend Vlad, who I've had on the show, and we've raised money for him, and he's been also distributing our money to different people in need, and I'm going to update you on that in a minute too. He's doing a really cool thing now. It's from Kharkiv. Well, across the border, reportedly, an ammo dump, an ammunitions depot, blew up at a Russian military base. Now, it could be a number of things. It could be Ukrainian special forces that infiltrated and blew it up. Apparently, they've done this 2 other times in Russia during the war at 2 Air Force bases or at 2 airports that they blew up. It could be a Ukrainian missile, and the Russian missile defense just was bad. And thank you, the TikTok person who just put that up there. It could be Russian malfeasance. Russia apparently has a history of its ammunition dumps exploding on it because they don't take care of them. And one theory was because the Russians are in so much trouble with this war, because the Ukrainians have so depleted the Russian military and depleted the Russian ammunition, that the Russians are now going back and opening up really old stocks of ammunition that are so old, they're really dangerous. Like I'm not an ammunitions expert, but the experts were saying when it gets really old, it's stuff, it's like the TV show, like you've got to be really careful moving it. And the Russians just always tend to blow this stuff up. They blow themselves up. So it could be that. We don't know. Either way, the conclusion is that this is ammunition. This is near the Ukrainian border. It's near Kharkiv, which is a town that they've been trying to blow up for a month now, or they've been blowing up for a month now. The fact that the Russians have lost a major ammunition depot near the Ukrainian border is huge because it sets them back all the farther. I mean, it's as if nothing can go right for these guys. Now the one, I only have one negative story, and then I'm going to conclude telling you about Vlad, and then we'll do questions. The only negative story is in the town of Mariupol. This is one of the towns that's been occupied by the Russians for a while now in southern Ukraine. And in the town of Mariupol, the Russians are detaining a number of teachers and the school chief, they're calling it. I think in America, we would call it the head of the Board of Education. It's the head of a number of schools for the city and the teachers, because the Russians, once they took the town over, they demanded that the school change its curriculum to some Russian curriculum, which is insane. Thank you for that. But also, get this, that they switch the school's language to Russian. So the school can no longer teach in Ukrainian. It has to teach in Russian. And the teachers basically said, no way. So the Russians arrested them. So we'll see what happens. But good for the teachers. I mean, really good for the teachers, because you can imagine living under occupation cannot be a great thing. And standing up to them was great. So the final update, sip of water, and this was pretty good. We went pretty fast on the updates. Now we've got a good 50 minutes or so. We can do Q&A, guys. The final update, talked to my friend Vlad today, my Ukrainian friend from Kharkiv, who is in southwestern Ukraine, who has been helping refugees. He's been getting food to refugees. He's actually been helping individual refugees pay for housing with your donations, but he's also helping what I would call a soup kitchen of sorts in Kharkiv, where they're going out and buying a lot of food, making it themselves so they can, make a lot of food, right? You get all the staples, and then going around town. This is a town that's under attack. People aren't going anywhere. Going around town and delivering food, clothing, and medicine to people around town. Because, and it's funny, the medicine was the one that, not medicine, the clothing was the one that initially I was like, clothing? And then I thought, think about it. First, you're in your apartment. There's no running water. If you've got a washer and dryer, you're not washing your clothes. If you left your apartment to go to the bomb shelter in the subway, how many changes of clothes did you bring? I would say probably none. The last thing I think, when a fire alarm goes off, I don't bring a change of clothes. I bring my dog. Maybe I grab my laptop and maybe my wallet and maybe the family photos, maybe. But usually I grab like my laptop or something, and that's it. But I would never bring a change of clothes. These guys don't have clothes even. So anyway, Vlad's been funding that charity with your money, and he just found somebody else, and this is really cool. And I talked to him, and he said, oh, no, they trust this woman. It's a friend of a friend, so they know who she is. And I'm not going to say what town. It was funny. He was fine saying what town, and I said, I'm not saying what town. The woman needed a large vehicle to go to an embattled city in Ukraine where there are a lot of refugees who have not had food and water for a long time, and they need to get out. And they found a secret way of getting into the town that's still available. They needed a large enough vehicle to get a number of refugees in it, and your donations are helping them procure the vehicle to get the refugees out, which is very cool. I mean, obviously risky for this woman and the refugees, but they want to do it. So if they want to do it, happy to help. So I just thought that was, personally, I thought that was very cool, and that one kind of gave me chills. It's like, anyway, but what we're going to do, and I promise we're doing questions right now after this. What I talked to Vlad about today is, I think the next stage of raising money, and I'll tell you his PayPal in a second. What we're going to do, I told him to come up with a wish list of different things. Of different things they need. And at this point, non-military, because I have no idea if we can even buy them military things, but I do know you can give them gifts for humanitarian stuff. We know that. You can always give a gift. And he's saying, there's a lot of medicines needed, a lot of other things. So I said, you know what? Talk to the different groups in town that are or in the country distributing medicine, et cetera, and give us a goal. Give us a goal. Is it $3,000 for medicine to serve 100 people? I don't know what, but give us these goals, and he's going to do it. So I'm going to talk to him again tomorrow, and we're going to hopefully do some individual fundraisers, because I think it would be kind of neat knowing that you're giving money to buy drugs for 3,000 people who need heart medicine or something like that, whatever it is. So anyway, to me at least, I like giving money for things like that when I actually know I'm helping individual people, rather than it just going to some big organization in the sky. So okay, there we go. We have our first question, our super chat question from Maddie Mann. I hear Fox News donated millions to the Red Cross for Ukraine, and they gave it to Russia to set up those lockup camps that Ukrainians go to in Russia. I don't know if you're joking or not. The Red Cross is in a lot of hot water. I talked about this last night because, first of all, it seems a lot of their staff got cold feet and they aren't even doing much in Ukraine right now because, they're worried about the war. And the Ukrainians are like, you're the Red Cross. Like, you exist for war. Like, what do you mean you're afraid of the war? The other thing is, the Red Cross held this horrific meeting with the Russian foreign minister, Lavrov. And it was one of those really stupid thing people in politics do when, you're meeting a war criminal. So you go, hey, hello, slap on the back, laughing for the pictures, both of them. I mean, horrific image for the Red Cross. And the Red Cross was talking to the Russians about, again, afraid to do work in Ukraine, but setting up an office in Russia right across the border so they could help all the Ukrainians the Russians have kidnapped. And everybody in Ukraine was like, so you're legitimizing the kidnapping of our citizens and simply treating it like it's look how good the Russians are being. So anyway, Red Cross, not a lot of good news there. Somebody had actually asked me if any of your donations were going to Red Cross, and I said, no. Your organizations are going to local people and local organizations who are directly helping people in Ukraine. Lindsay, thank you. That was very sweet of you. Well, since we just did a question on you guys, let me pull up a question on TikTok. Hang on, guys, to your Q&A. 88. See, this is the thing. There's already 88 questions. I love you guys. Well, let's start with that. That's always an interesting question, and I think it changes day by day. So Mr. Matt Wheeler asks, what will be Putin's future when all of this is done? I mean, that's going to depend on a lot of things. Okay, one scenario, the Russian people rise up and finally say, this is unacceptable. It's possible. In Russian history, when governments lose wars, it really hurts the government, and the governments often lose power as a result because the people, they have no credibility with the people, and also they lose credibility with the military. And clearly, if I were the Russian military, I'd be pretty ticked at Vladimir Putin right now. You know, he's where the buck stops. He's the one that approved the military plans, and my suspicion is he's such a jerk to all the people around him. There was a famous scene with his top intelligence advisor several weeks ago, right before the war started, where Putin was just berating this man. And this man he was berating him for things like, speak up, I can't hear you, sit up. And what do you mean you think? You know, or do you think? And I mean, 5 minutes of basically the worst boss you've ever had. And the man is shrinking in his seat like he's about to be handed some poison tea, right? This is how Putin treats his staff, his senior staff. So you can imagine they're probably not very willing to say, hey, boss, that plan for the war, really bad, right? So the military is not going to be happy with Putin. So the question becomes, A, is it possible there's some kind of a revolution or something where the people rise up, the military rises up, and they overthrow Putin? Maybe. And if that happens, if the new people in power say, you know what, this was a mistake, we want to work with the West, you know, we need to be partners, here's Vladimir Putin, go have your war crimes trial. That's a possibility. Also, I mean, he could die in these kind of revolutions. That's one way, to get rid of the leader. You have a coup and he goes away. So that's possible. The other possibilities are, does Russia win or lose this war? Does Ukraine win or lose? Is it a tie? What kind of a tie, right? I mean, so I guess there's a couple questions as to what does this do to Putin's standing politically in Russia, but also the whole question of war crimes, which we've talked about before. I'll give the really quick synopsis of the war crimes problem. In a nutshell, it is very hard to prove war crimes for a political leader of a country because you legally have to prove that that leader knew that bombing at like the bombing at the theater where it was written children, was that a war criminal pilot? Was that his war criminal colonel? Was that the war criminal general in charge of the area? Was it the war criminal minister of defense? Or was it Vladimir Putin himself who said, go for it, do it, right? You don't know. And you've got to show a connection between the person you're accusing of war crimes and the actual war crime. And that can be very difficult when you get to senior levels, ironically, even though we would think probably in Russia, it's the senior level that tells them to do these things. And the junior level goes, okay, because the Russian military doesn't have nearly as much kind of control of what they're doing on the lower levels as the US military does, for example. But nonetheless, legally, you got to prove it. So that can be difficult. The second thing is Putin having nukes. He seems to have gotten away in the past with the war crime thing. Look at Syria. It's not like anybody investigated him and tried him for war crimes in Syria. And the man, remember when they blew up those chemical weapons? Excuse me. Thank you for that. And all those poor kids were tried. All those poor kids were killed in Syria. I mean, we saw those pictures here on the news in America. It was horrible. Daniel, my buddy, asks with a fun new color today. I don't know if I'll let you pick the color if it's random. Regarding a peace agreement, will Russia try to divide and conquer? If Zelensky tries to save lives by agreeing to some form of partition, meaning agreeing that some part of the country he gives to Russia, or let's be independent or something. Could this be more dangerous in the long run? Could we ever see disagreement among the Ukrainians? Well, let's work backwards. Zelensky has said that any deal he were to reach or his negotiators reach with the Russians has got to be put up for a vote before the Ukrainian people. I think it's the Ukrainian parliament, and they have to have, I'm guessing, like a plebiscite or whatever you'd call it, where the Ukrainian people have to vote on it. So for starters, at least you'd have to get a majority or however many. Now, what if, like Brexit in England, what if you get 53% who say yes and 47% say, we're not giving up our land? Are you crazy? That could be extremely divisive, obviously, for the country, right? So that's one problem right there. Let me see here. Oh, that's kind of the same question. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't think a lot of people are thinking that Ukrainians are planning to give up much. I mean, I got a little worried when I was reading this initial peace thing today. You know, like putting off Crimea for 15 years. I would have said, you're losing the war. I'm on Crimea now. You know, having said that, a lot of Ukrainians are dying and a lot of their cities are being destroyed, at least up until now. And obviously the leader has to take that into account too. You know, I mean, as a lawyer, I was trained as a lawyer. One of the things you learn to do with clients or whomever you're helping is you kind of have to step back and say, look, I know you're innocent, but do you really want to go to court for 3 years and spend $50,000? You know, if we could just pay him $5,000 and he'll go away and he'll sign a document that he'll never come after you again. If you're the client, you're like, I was wronged. Why should I give him $5,000? But the lawyer would say, okay, but then you're going to spend $50,000 and it's going to eat away at you for 3 years. So it's going to just, so the same kind of thing happens here. At some point you'd say, is there a trade-off Ukraine has to make simply because they want peace? But in my view, Russia better make a trade-off too, because otherwise Ukraine should say, you know what? As long as the Ukrainian people are on board with this war, I would say, let's just keep plowing through. And if the Russian troops can't handle it, go home. But clearly right now the Russian troops are getting hurt. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, I think the Ukrainians are obviously pretty unified right now. The question becomes what kind of, I don't think Zelensky's going to sign on to anything that's controversial. I don't think he can. I mean, now the question becomes whether the West and others try to pressure him. But if they're smart, they won't, because probably all of us will weigh in and go, what are you doing? You know, you're not going to browbeat the Ukrainians into accepting a bad deal. I do follow Ukrainian people on TikTok. Marvelous. Or no, who was that? Stacy Morgan making assumptions. I follow Zena Solo and I follow Ukrainian Badass for starters. Actually, I'm following a new young man who contacted me last night. I'm afraid to pull up his info because I don't want, the name I think is Ryan. He's got 100,000 followers. He's really good. He looks like he's probably young 20s and he's 100,000 followers. So he's, I mean, you guys are probably familiar with him. And they just blocked him again. TikTok blocked him. Like, I'm going to see if I can find his name. Blocked him like a week ago for who knows why, right? His videos were fine. He just got let back in. They just blocked him again. So he can look at his account, but he can't use it. And they're kind of, it's crazy because I looked through this kid's TikTok account and it's wonderful. He's I don't want to say he's sweet in a condescending way, but he's a nice kid and he does these nice videos. He's Ukrainian. I mean, he's Ukrainian, and he's updating you on the news of the war as a Ukrainian. It's wonderful. But I just want to see if I can find his name really quick, because if any of you know of him or want to find him, he clearly needs some help, and maybe like the help I gave him the different places to contact that I contacted, and also told him, you know, I'm happy to help as well. Sorry, my email, I've got to wait for my email to download here, that I'm happy to kind of weigh in with TikTok as well if I have any. Here, we'll let that pull up. My iPad is very old. Someday when I'm rich, I'll buy a new iPad. Yeah, we'll let that download, and let me look at the next question, but I definitely want to give you Ryan's information because I like him. I think he does good videos. And the final thing was looking at his videos. This guy, there is nothing even, I mean, my videos are edgier than his videos, and I don't think my videos are offensive. This guy just does these really nice updates on what's going on with the war. You would look at his videos and go, you cannot ban. I'm looking it up right now. Oh, here we, actually, you know what? Let me look right now. Okay, here we go. I've got my, I think it's Ryan. Let me see. I'm just going to look because we were emailing each other last night. Hang on, guys, but this is important. Otherwise, I wouldn't drag it out here. No, it's not. It's Sasha. Sasha. Boom. Sasha. Oh, here he is. His account is Sasha Rehelo, Reheylo. Because I went to his account. You can find him pretty easily. Yeah, that's his account. At one word, Sasha, Sasha, Reheylo. it's a wonderful account. I mean, I recommend folks follow him anyway, but also I gave him the different email addresses and everything. I know, how could I forget the name Sasha? Exactly. Ryan. I don't know why I'm thinking Ryan for a Ukrainian. I don't know why that even popped in, because I knew I asked him. He said, yeah, thank you for that. He said, yeah, I'm Ukrainian. So I was like, oh, wow. I assume, you can hear his accent. You assume he was. But anyway, yeah, very bad. So hopefully we can help some other people too, because like I said, I loved his videos. There's no way in hell this guy is offensive. All right, let me look at some of the... Oh, Daniel? Okay, yeah. I hope I answered your question, Daniel. But yeah, I doubt Zelensky's going to do anything too controversial. I think Ukrainians are he's too smart, and Ukrainians are too united on that, Oh, okay. Actually, in the comments on YouTube, at least, maybe on TikTok too, but in the comments on YouTube, a number of folks are putting the other Ukrainians they like to follow on TikTok, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. So this is interesting from Amber. Amber says, I think Ukraine should 100% join NATO as soon as they're able. This is the only way to ensure backup if they get invaded again. That is very true. And it's, I don't think we're going to let them in. Ukraine has wanted to join NATO for 14 years at least now. And NATO keeps giving them BS excuses about, first their democracy wasn't good enough, and then their weapons weren't good enough. They had to have a NATO-class military. And now we see their military is really, really good, way better than the Russians. And now, of course, we don't want to do it because of this. The other thing was Putin smartly invaded. One of the things Putin does to stop countries from joining NATO is he goes in and takes land. Because if Ukraine becomes part of NATO, then Russia has invaded NATO because Russia has still invaded Crimea. So if they don't give up Crimea, Russian troops will be on NATO territory and we'll all be at war. So he's kind of made it in a way that almost makes it impossible for NATO to allow Ukraine in. But my concern, and thank you for thanking me, by the way, whoever that was about the updates on TikTok. My concern is that NATO is afraid of ticking off Russia. That's why they weren't going to let him in to start with. And we know this. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing it with those crazy MiG fighter jets from Poland that NATO was afraid of giving, the U.S. was afraid, and U.S. and NATO overall, afraid of giving Ukraine. And all that crazy talk about nuclear war and everything else. It's going to be nuclear war if we fight with Russia. I mean, I don't want to fight with Russia. Lie Joe, thank you for that, by the way. I don't want to fight with Russia, but, give me a break. Sorry. Oh, and Elijah. Oh, so Elijah, what are your thoughts on Aaron Parnas? I've looked at his videos. I don't, he seems to, I know who his father is more than Aaron. I saw his name and I went, that name's familiar. Thank you, by the way, whoever's doing that on TikTok, the disco ball. But I read his stuff. I haven't seen it well enough. I've read his, oh, that's nice. Okay, well, you're going away. Yes. Okay, I assume you guys already got rid of the crazy best cams person. Thank you. that was pretty weird. We got like one of these scammers who's trying to get us for like girl chat or whatever. Like, okay, whatever. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. I've seen some of his videos. He seems fine. I don't know his background. I know his background. He's a lawyer, but I don't really know his background in politics. So there you go. What else we got? Let me pull up another TikTok question. Hang on, guys. Now, the light's always funny. By the way, I am never adjusting the light. What happened? Oh, I forgot to tell you, TikTok folks. So what happened last night was I got like a little notice or something. Somebody sent me a message. I don't know what. And I went to swipe it away. Well, it's my iPhone swiped my TikTok away. And anytime I switch to some other program or anything else, any app, it keeps TikTok going. I can still see your comments, but it freezes my video. So that's what I did last night. And the last one, I was going to say goodbye anyway, because we'd been doing this for an hour and 40 minutes. So at that point, I just said, oh, forget it. Because I didn't want new people to come on and think, oh my God, what's going on? He's here for 5 minutes and we're talking cats or something, because we were in the fun part of the show. Oh, thank you for that. I've never seen the shooting stars thing. That's very cool. Thank you. Let me pull up your questions on TikTok here. One moment here. Well, isn't that the question? So Joe, or Joed 966 asks, did Russia poison Ukrainian delegates to the peace talks? What we know is, now the U.S. was trying to downplay this, but I like my government, but I think my government I do not, and I wish I did, Casey. I don't, no. No. Casey was asking if I've got a link to the Russian cartoon. I don't. I will, or real quick, I talked about this Russian cartoon where they went after Putin in the war and they compared him to Hitler and they said he should kill himself. I mean, like really over the edge Russian cartoon, a very popular cartoon in Russia. The thing that I'd be worried about is if it requires, going to a Russian website and having a video stream at me and having that information come to my computer would worry me a little bit nowadays. I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't do that right now, as an American especially, unless you know technology and you really know you're doing it safely. But real quick, sorry, back to this. So the poison thing. So the story came out yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, confirmed by Bellingcat, very reputable online investigators overall, very reputable people. And what they found was two of the top Ukrainian investigators at the negotiations with the Russians on March 3rd, and sort of the middleman, Abramovich, I always forget his first name, who's the oligarch, very rich Jewish oligarch, ties to Israel, ties like all over the place, but also an oligarch. So he's like rich Russian politico businessman who's ties to Putin. Anyway, he was trying to do this sort of intermediary role. He and the two top negotiators get violently ill that evening. He apparently lost his vision for a while. His skin was peeling. Well, Bellingcat went and brought in some chemical weapons experts who, pervade the scene, looked at the symptoms, everything else. And Bellingcat said they are almost, the experts said it is almost certainly poisoning with a chemical weapon. They said it's a possibility. It was microwave radiation, but a very small possibility. Now, the U.S. is still trying to say, the latest I heard from our government was, well, it could have been, like they said, well, it could have been environmental, meaning they breathed something in the air. First of all, if you know how governments work, it could have been means yes, it could be that I'm not a person, that I'm actually a dog. I'm a space alien. It could be. Because I do believe aliens exist. I believe in life in outer space. So it could be that I'm an alien. I'm not an alien. And actually the percentage chance that I'm an alien is pretty small. And so I think our government was playing a game by saying it could be environmental, because one of their experts probably said, yeah, there's a 0.5% chance it's environmental, but it really looks like chemical weapons. But if we say it's chemical weapons, then what does that do? That means we've got to do something about it, because remember, we said if Putin uses chemical weapons, all bets are off. So this is where you get into the problem. And frankly, this is the problem with the war crimes too. You get into this really weird thing where we can say definitively things that we won't let the other guy do, like use chemical weapons. But then if he uses them, it puts us in the spot of, now what do we do? Right? And especially the way Putin did it, if Putin did this, but I'm sure Putin did this, that he poisoned them just enough to get them sick, but not kill them. Just enough to get them sick overnight, so that basically they would get scared to death knowing that the Russian secret police were able to access them and poison. Basically, we could have killed you if we wanted to, right? Just to kind of really freak out the negotiators. So, he didn't kill them. He only did it to 3 people. One of the 3 people was a Russian. Is that as bad? I mean, you get into this whole weird, crazy conversation about, was it really a chemical attack? So anyway, I think that's why our government's being goofy, because they do not want to admit that that it was a chemical weapons attack, because then we have to bomb or something. Now, Andriana, I'm going to get this right. I'm going to say Yakimishin, but I never get the stress right in these names. Yakimishin. It could also be Yakumushun, I'm guessing as well. In any case, apologize for getting your name wrong. Adriana says, judging by Russian army preparation and conditions, or in their condition, are we even sure that Russian nuclear weapons aren't in the same state? That has been brought up before. You guys have brought it up before in the chat, actually. I did see some experts discussing it online and saying what we had sort of assumed, which is, nuclear weapons are technology. Technology has wires. I mean, there's, especially older technology is going to have wires. Even if you've got, semiconductor chips and all this kind of stuff, then it's more like a computer. Well, what do computers do? They break, right? I mean, my refrigerator has a motherboard in it, which is like a part of a computer. It broke a couple years ago and started clicking. And actually somebody else's refrigerator did it. And I said, that's your motherboard. But that's a computer part. It broke. Computer parts break. So if you're not keeping up on the weapons, and we know the Russians did not keep up on their weapons overall. We know they bought really bad wheels for their trucks and tanks and everything else from the Chinese. On the trucks, actually, from the Chinese, they were falling apart, and they didn't take care of the wheels. There's this whole thing about not leaving the car sitting in the sun facing the same way for months at a time, because what happens? The sun is hitting one half of the car and not the other, and these wheels are just getting baked to the point where eventually the rubber gets solid and breaks. Lots of other things like that the Russians weren't doing, so their wheels on a lot of their vehicles in Ukraine were just blowing up and falling apart, even without the Ukrainians doing anything to it, right? So that's where you get the question Adriana's saying about their sort of preparation, the conditions, the fact that the ammunitions depot just blew up at the Russian base across the border from Kharkiv, Ukraine, could have been an attack, but it also could have been Russian incompetence, because they've had a lot of ammunition depots and ammunition storage blow up because they just do such a bad job, taking care of this stuff. So we don't know. I guess we really don't know if their nukes work. The problem is, I argue, you just have to assume their nuclear weapons do work, right? Because what do? If we don't know for sure, we can't say, well, we think their nukes don't work, let's invade, right? Well, if their nukes do work, then we just started a nuclear war. All they need is one nuclear weapon to cause, a disaster in some big city somewhere. So it's a very good question, but it also is a question where I always conclude by saying I'm not sure it matters, because in the end we have to assume that some of their nuclear weapons are working, and therefore the unthinkable could happen. So good question though, but and you're probably right. I mean, it'd be interesting. It'd be fascinating to see if we could find out the truth and see, do we actually know to actually find out if Russia even has a nuclear weapons force anymore, frankly. I mean, they're doing so badly with the military. Another question. TikTok question. See, this is when my screen gets a little dimmer on TikTok, but I'm not going to brighten it up today because I kicked you guys off 3 times doing that yesterday. No updates on Anonymous. No updates on that. They've been publishing a lot of bank information and other stuff. Actually, somebody, Len Mardell asks, could or should the West enforce more sanctions? In fact, they are going to be doing new sanctions. Biden's got new sanctions coming out shortly, going after the military. And it's going after some kind of supplies that the Russian military gets. And the idea is stopping them from fixing or rebuilding all the weapons that they're losing now in the battle. So in other words, if they want to start a wider war with NATO, we don't want them to be building more weapons. B, if they want to continue the war with Ukraine, we also don't want them building new weapons and bringing them in. So I know that's coming shortly. It was in the news today. And the Russians are starting to, trying to find ways of evading the other sanctions. So you've always got to keep upping the ante and tweaking the sanctions to make sure you're constantly, blocking them. I'll pull up another TikToker. I did see that today. Pop-Up Kush says the Russian stock market opened. How's it going? The Russian stock market had opened a day or two ago. Maybe it was probably yesterday, it'd be Monday. And it was only like 33 a couple days ago. It was only 33 of their stocks. This was a couple days ago, actually. And you couldn't do any short sales. In other words, you couldn't bet that the stocks were going down. From what I saw, the Russian stock market is now open to trade everything. I don't know whether you can do shorts yet, but I believe all the stocks were being traded, and the market actually went up today. Now, mind you, the Russian stock market, I was looking at some of the funds, like the funds of, you have a fund of all Russia's top companies or a fund of all Russia's small companies. And I was looking at it a couple of weeks ago when the markets closed, and these guys had dropped anywhere from 3 times to 5 times in value. So if they were at $25, now they're at $5, right? So they already went down a lot. So they did do better today because the stock market overall in the US and also the Russian one did better because they liked this talk of peace. They liked that Russia and Ukraine both said there are positive developments at the peace talks. So the stocks did better, but was it enough to get them back to where they were? I doubt it. I doubt that. Index funds, exactly. I'm describing it poorly, but yes, they were index funds of Russian companies. I did it again. I'm reaching for my laptop, my Mac top, and I tried to scroll the comments in the in the YouTube. Let me see. What do you got here for comments, guys? I always get a kick out of the YouTubers because I don't know if you guys on TikTok do it as much, but the YouTubers are always chatting amongst themselves. So I'll literally go to look for a question from them, and I'm watching them all chat with each other. It's the funniest darn thing. Oh, Kelly. Yeah, let me highlight yours, Kelly. Hang on a sec. Kelly Halstead, which is a famous name in Chicago. I don't know if it's the same Halstead. Thoughts on Russian diplomats getting kicked out of countries like Belgium, accused of allegedly being spies? Yeah, they Montenegro, I want to say, a couple days ago kicked out maybe 4 or so, which was kind of nice. It was like smaller country getting tough. The Baltic states just kicked out a lot of Russian spies, whatever, diplomats today or yesterday. I saw that in the news today. I'm sure they're spying. I mean, first of all, look, we already know a lot of the Russian diplomats are spies, if not all of them. We've got a lot of spies in their countries too, I'm sure, right? And part of the tit for tat is simply, boy, these people with the thing that kind of blows my mind when these scammers come and they try to like invade the comments is, why would they think somebody would go, hot girls and boys video chat? Like what? I mean, I'm trying to think, like, especially in a chat like this, like, who comes for a discussion of Ukraine and says, hey, I think I want to go check out that video chat written by somebody who clearly is fake. That would be exciting. Anyway, once again, I'm trying to block it and it's not blocking, so I'm hoping that means you guys are blocking it. I know we have mods. Exactly. Watch the mods attack. The mods are good. Thank you, guys. So in any case, yeah, that's what's going on. I mean, I don't know that it has any real significance because typically what will happen is the Russians will then kick out just as many diplomats in those countries. It does make it makes it harder for everyone to do their work because if you lose your diplomats in the country, the diplomats lose their contacts so that you're not finding out sort of all that behind the scenes information of what's really going on. Now, I can't imagine there's a lot of I hope to God there's not a lot of Americans helping Russian diplomats get the behind the scenes information. I had a creepy Soviet diplomat come up to me when I was working on Capitol Hill. I was working in the U.S. Senate back in 1989. And this guy's like, oh, you're the new foreign policy guy. I'd love to take you to lunch sometime. And I'm literally there going, I want to take a shower right now. And I called our security people at the Senate. I said, okay, who is this guy? And they said, oh, we know who he is. He's KGB. He said, you're right. He's KGB. He's KGB. And he's trying to woo you. They said, we recommend you don't go to lunch with him. And I was like, oh, don't worry. But just sitting in I wasn't going to bring him into a room either. I'm in the front office. Like I got the phone call from the front desk receptionist going, there's someone from the Soviet embassy here for you. And I'm going, oh God, no. So yeah, creepy as hell. But anyway, yeah, so it makes it harder for them to do their work because apparently somebody talks to them. My guess is they're spying, doing what spies do. Let me pull up another tiki-taki question. Boom. What else we got here? Yes, that was kind of funny. Actually, this was something. Marco CY asks that Tinder, the dating app, is helping Ukrainians see how close Russians are to them, how close the Russian troops are. What I saw, actually, I learned about this on the TikTok site of that Ukrainian guy I was telling you about, Sasha, who one of his, this is what I'm saying, his videos are great. And he was saying that they're using Tinder, the Ukrainians, and Grindr, which is the gay hookup or dating app. And what they're using it for is figuring out, like, first of all, where you can, I've done this before. And for some work I was doing once, I did it before where we needed to triangulate where somebody was, and I did it with Grindr. I simply got 2 different locations in town, pulled their Grindr, and we found out where he worked because he was checking at work. I mean, very scary stuff you can do with this stuff, guys. So, because basically what Grindr does, Tinder's probably the same way. If you let the app do it, you can turn it off. But if you let the app do it, you can let it tell people how far away you are. And that way people know, oh, you're 2,000 miles away. You're just some goofball chatting with me. Or you're a mile away. Oh, you really are in my town. I'll talk to you, right? 20 miles away. But that's one of the things. Or, if you're looking to meet up with somebody, if they're nearby, that's convenient. If it's 2 a.m, if that's your cup of tea, right? So anyway, they're using it to see the distance. The Russians are going on these apps and looking around, and they're looking at the distance of where the Russians are, and basically saying, oh, this guy is, 1,000 meters away, or, which is 3,000 feet or whatever away. And even better, if they're actually, I need to pass this along to Vlad to tell his friends. They may not realize the next step then is you triangulate them. So you say that profile, get somebody here a couple blocks away and somebody a couple blocks this way, and you all take the same profile. And depending on how far away, you can triangulate and see where they are. Like I said, literally, we found out the coffee shop this guy worked at because I triangulated and found it. I mean, it was scary, actually. It was kind of scary. The guy deserved it, but it was very scary. So yes, I did hear about it, and it's freaking brilliant. And thanks to you, I'm going to make sure to tell Vlad, to tell his friends about Tinder and Grindr, but on triangulation, which is something folks may not think about. So thank you for that. Let's do it's basic geometry, but see this, yes, exactly, basic geometry. This, kids, is why math was important in school, because creepy people like me can get you in a lot of trouble because we remember our math and we know how to use it. It actually is kind of funky. Like being able to use math as an adult sometimes. It's rare, but it's not rare at all, actually. But that's one of the cool things we're like going, we can triangulate. And it's very spy-ish too. I did say the name of the Russian cartoon, anybody wants to go look at my TikTok, it is the latest TikTok video I put up, not pinned, but the latest video I put up has the Russian I'm talking about the Russian cartoon that makes fun of Vladimir Putin, and it's very popular, and I believe the name is Masianya. Like M-A, there you go, Masianya. That's exactly what it is. MT History Buff just wrote it. I'll put it on the screen for the YouTubers. For you guys on TikTok, it's Masianya, M-A-S as in Sam, Y-A-N as in Nancy, Y-A. So like Anya, Masianya. Episode 160, apparently. That's funny. My only concern is, like I said, I'd be very careful going onto a Russian website to try to watch something. That scares me a little bit. That scares me. So Sasha is just this wonderful guy, and he does these wonderful videos and looks like he's the salt of the earth, as we would say in America, and it just is very unfair that they blocked him. So if you can help him out, guys. Actually, as I said, I don't know if you guys were able to pull up his profile. If you do, maybe copy the profile name, and if you want to put it in the TikTok comments and put it in the YouTube comments, if I see it, I can highlight it. Actually, I don't know. Can the mods highlight posts? If you have one of those, feel free to put it up. If you have one that has his name on, or his account on it, I wouldn't mind. I don't know if you can, but just to share it with people, I think it'd be nice because I like it. He's my Ukrainian friend here. No, he's great. Yeah, he's really interesting. I think he has a backup profile now. There you go. Yeah. Sasha Rehelio. Thank you. Some of the folks are putting it on TikTok. Thank you for that. All right, let me look for more. I did get a haircut, David. Yes, we can discuss that in I'm going to pull it back. The end of the show. See, I'm still growing into it. We can talk about that. That'll be for the end of the show where we talk about silly stuff like cooking and my dog and everything else. What other questions? Well, Mariupol is very important. So Joe Holt asks, how important is Mariupol in dividing Russian forces? So Mariupol is considered critical in that you've got the Ukrainian Eastern Ukraine, Donbass, those regions that I don't want to say they're trying to go independent. The regions where the Russians have funded insurrectionists who are trying to go independent, and Russia now, recognize them as independent, even though they're still part of Ukraine. And you've got then Crimea in the south of Ukraine, the peninsula that's sticking down into the Black Sea is Crimea. The Russians stole that in 2014. Well, what the Russians want to do is they want to annex Donbass, the region in the east. They already annexed Crimea in the south. And you can see my hands here. There's a space between my two fingers. They are trying to get all of the land here, and they currently are occupying most of the land except the town of Mariupol. And that is the town that they're bombing the children in the theater that said children. That's the town that they bombed the maternity ward. the hospital where women were having babies and the woman died and her baby died and all of that. So Mariupol is incredibly important to them to finish this corridor they want, connecting, basically making Greater Russia and connecting connecting Crimea to them. Now, the experts I was seeing were saying that Mariupol could be in trouble soon. Like it's not clear that the Ukrainians can defend Mariupol for much longer because, the people are starving in that town. Having said that, they've been defending it for a month against the Russians and they're still defending it. And let's face it, don't count the Ukrainians out. So who knows? But yeah, it's very important. Hopefully, even if it falls, the Ukrainians can get it back. Because keep in mind, a number of towns in the north, Irpin is one of them. Chernihiv, which I'm pretty sure is north too. Irpin reportedly is now in control by the Ukrainians again. Chernihiv, at least most of it, I think, is now in control of the Ukrainians. So you're seeing the Ukrainians winning towns back. So, just even if the Russians can get it, can they keep it? I'm not so sure about that. Let me go and or actually, there may have been, make sure there wasn't, there was another thing. Yes, from Kat G on YouTube. Assuming the recent explosion was an attack, meaning at Belgorod at the military base, the ammunitions depot at the military base in Russia across the Ukrainian border, assuming it was an attack by Ukraine, is it realistic for Ukraine to start attacking Russia across the border more? If they did, would other countries still supply them with weapons and money? That's interesting. From what I read today, Ukraine has only done this 3 times. That they've in this case, they've only done 3 times that they infiltrated, like, the secret Navy SEALs type, except that this is land, but you get my idea. Like a, secret Marine squad or whatever to go. The previous 2 times they blew up airports, and this time maybe they blew up the ammunitions at a military base, or it could have been missiles as well, right? From the Ukrainians, or it could have been the Russians being goofy and blowing up their own base because they don't take care of their weapons. They've done that before. That's possible too. The question becomes, if Ukraine were to do more of that, would it creep NATO out more? It's hard to say. Honestly, I think NATO's playing a game to start with, because you've got NATO saying, oh, we're okay giving the Ukrainians rifles that kill Russians. We're okay giving the Ukrainians rocket-propelled grenades that kill Russians. We're okay with giving the Ukrainians javelins, which are these shoulder-held, they're these really big shoulder-held weapons that are used for firing at tanks and armored vehicles like that. That's okay to kill Russians, but if you kill them using a MiG fighter jet, that crosses a line and Russia would declare war. What's the freaking difference? What's the freaking difference? There's no difference. And this would be the same thing. So we can we can supply weapons that kill Russian troops in Ukraine, but we can't supply weapons that kill Russian troops 2 miles across the border. Maybe NATO would draw a distinction. Now, one thing I hadn't mentioned before, an idea I had about those planes, remember the Polish fighter jets that Poland was afraid of giving to Ukraine, but said they'd give it to America, and America could give it to Ukraine, and America said, we don't want to give it to, I'm not going to try it, you try it, right? Well, one of the things I thought about, thank you for that, TikTok folks, one of the things I thought about was, I think Russia reached out to America behind the scenes and said, if you give them those planes, we're attacking. Like, we are going to blow up the bases in Poland or the airports or whatever if you give those planes, because clearly Biden and NATO was so freaked out. They were so freaked out and not willing to do it. That tells me that either Putin threatened them privately and they were scared, or they're just a bunch of wimps. I'm sorry. I see no difference in it. I just see no difference. But yes, Kat, because I think there's been a fear factor going on here of Vladimir Putin having psyched out the West and NATO into thinking, oh my God, what will he do next? And so they're afraid to piss him off. Mind you, look at what happened this weekend. When Biden made the comment about, my God, this man cannot remain in power. Literally the media repeatedly asked and said, I saw a reporter ask Biden this. Don't you think he's more likely to use chemical weapons now that you were mean to him? And Biden literally looks at the woman and goes, No. I mean, you could tell he wanted to go, you moron. I mean, it's whatever. It's driving me nuts. And but there is this Putin he psyched us out first about the size, not the size, but the capabilities of his military. His military clearly sucks. But they convinced us it was really good. His troops suck. They convinced us, a 1 million-man army, scary, right? All the missiles, 60% of their missiles are failing. 60%, which is a horrific number. Anything over 20% is really bad. And now he's doing it again. Oh, he's Mr. Nuclear War. And even with that discussion, I'm like, as soon as they said that about nukes, as soon as Putin's spokesman was making the games about nuclear weapons, somebody should have said, hey, Boris, I got news for you. We got nukes too. You know, like, how could they not? I mean, the Russians know that, and they know we know it. I just don't understand why any policymaker, thank you, TikTok folks, for that, why any policymaker would even say, oh, we're afraid of a war starting. Of course no one wants a war. And that's what you say. Of course no one wants a war. But the Russians know they got nukes. Guess who else has them? We do too. And if they use them, we're going to use them. So I suggest you literally say that, and you say, I suggest they don't. End of story. But you don't sit there and go, oh, we're really afraid of him. He might use them, so we better not get involved. Because as far as I'm concerned, then you're giving the Ukrainians, you're giving the Russians permission to do things by doing that. Thoughts on cyber threat? Should we be, this is Michelle Kinchy. I'm going to say Kinchy. Should we be concerned, and what should we do to prepare? So the issue is Russia launching cyber attacks on the U.S. or NATO, the West. The only thing you could do as a citizen is, as I said, for example, I would be very careful about going to any Russian websites. .ru is not the website I would go to. That's the Russia, like .com. It's .ru for Russia. So I did not go there. I would not. I would update your phone. Anything that needs software updates. Your phone, your computers, your iPad or other kind of tablet stuff, Amazon, Kindle or whatever it's called. Any of those devices, make sure they're up to date. I just check, even though they update themselves, sometimes I find there's an update that hasn't installed yet. Like my computer had one the other day, it just hadn't installed yet. Just keep checking and updating your stuff so at least it's updated. That's what you can do. Beyond that, it's very hard. There's the larger question of, would Russia launch a larger attack on the West? Some people think they would, like some of the experts are actually very surprised they haven't, which I think is interesting. That they thought Russia would. Now, I'm intrigued why they think Russia would, because to me, if Russia launches cyber attacks, we're launching cyber attacks. If they go after our power grid, we'll go after their power grid. So what's the difference? It's just like nuclear weapons. Are you really so stupid that you're going to do that? So but a lot of the experts think Russia, that Putin's going to do it. Again, I still think it's like nukes, that they're not dumb. They go after us, we go after them, but who knows? No, sorry. Jessica asks, no guests yet planned for the lives. It's funny. I bought and we're already almost hitting the point where we're going to switch this over to our friendly chat. It's almost been an hour 15. Let me do another question. Actually, I'll put Jessica's question up, and then we can, just so I don't forget it, and then we'll chat. But let me look for one more question on TikTok, since you guys have been so good. I do know Russia. I do know actually Putin signed into law a new law that was about putting people in jail for speaking out and all that kind of stuff. He did just sign into law. That's the one I think that sent you to jail for 15 years. I'm pretty sure. Well, that's an interesting question. Scott McNabb asks, does Ukraine now fight for liberation of Crimea? Well, it depends. I mean, I haven't seen anybody talk about that. We know that Russia has attacked Ukraine from Crimea because Russia took over Crimea back in 2014. They bust in a ton of Russians. They bust in, their own military troops and weapons and all of that, right? So we know that they've been attacking the other areas from Crimea. What would be interesting is if that becomes another area where the Ukrainians are winning and pushing the Russians back. Wouldn't it be interesting if they started pushing the Russians back further down in Crimea, and now you've got Ukraine that is repatriating part of Crimea, like starting with the north and going down. That would be very interesting. I've not seen anything suggesting that happening yet, but wouldn't that be cool? You know, Austin asks about attempted assassinations. I have heard about multiple attempted assassinations of Zelensky. Yes. I have not heard about anything otherwise, but I think the Ukrainians said that it was the Wagner group, which is that group that's shadily tied to a Russian oligarch who has super close ties to Putin. Belarus, again, quick answer. Nicole asks, is the Belarus military coming in? You know, there's been concern, but NATO people are divided on whether it's real or not as to whether the Belarusian army will come in and start opening up a new front on behalf of Putin. The Ukraine map, Belarus up here. On TikTok, it's normal, but I think on YouTube it switches it the wrong way. Bottom line is northwest of Ukraine is Belarus. Northeast of Ukraine is Russia, okay? One of the things Russia did at the beginning of the invasion is they brought some of their troops through Belarus and then down into Ukraine. And the thought is, would Putin be able to force, say, 20,000 Belarusian troops into also invading and either invading and coming towards Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, or invading and going down to like Lviv, one of the big, or maybe the big city in Western Ukraine, and that way try to cut off the Polish border, because we assume a lot of foreign aid is coming across the Polish border, and we don't know where it's coming from. I mean, because we're not sending it, but I'm assuming that's where it is, and they talked about the Belarusians coming down and cutting that off. So that's been a concern. Right now, it doesn't look like it's happening, and Belarus, you know, the dictator there is not terribly popular with his people. So, you know, it's not clear that either his people want to go fight in Ukraine, or that meaning his military, or that his people overall. All right, guys, I'm going to do one more question off of YouTube, and then if we have any more super chats, I will do them. Otherwise, I'm going to do one last question, and then we're going to switch to the hanging out stuff, because we've been doing about an hour and 20 minutes now, and I get very. Oh, Jessica. Well, you know, Jessica, that'll be the easy question, so to speak. That'll be for easy time. Let me just see about one more question here. Although, like I said, you YouTubers are tough, though, because you're always talking amongst yourselves. Well, if you're all... Well, that's a good question, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, Jeff says, if you think the Russian military is garbage along with their nukes, why would you think they have cyber capability? I mean, our assessment was that Russia was ahead of us in terms of their cyber abilities. That was the assessment the U.S. had, because that's what I was hearing going into the war and even during the war. The problem becomes, like you said, do they? I mean, we also thought, you know, they knew how to use their weapons. They don't. We also thought their troops were highly trained. They suck. They don't even know how to take care of tires on trucks. You know, that's it. Now, okay, what your question is really asking, Jeff, if I may, is it, thank you, TikTok folks, by the way, for that. Is it possible that the Russians did try cyber and it blew up just like their ammo dump blew up in Belgorod, the Russian town? Maybe their efforts didn't, maybe we counteracted it and it didn't work, or maybe it just didn't work. Like they tried it out and it maybe works against Ukraine, but it didn't work against the US banks or whoever they were maybe going after. So entirely possible. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up with that. I will hang as always. We'll probably hang for another 20 minutes, but no more political questions. I only go for an hour. I say only. Like I said, the people I follow on TikTok that do lives do an hour or less, but I feel like we get a lot of good content by an hour 15. And this is the point where I start to get, like, I can feel my voice and everything. I start to get tired. So no more political questions. Thank you for joining us. We are going to hang. Feel free to hang. We usually have several hundred YouTubers and I'd say like 1,000 TikTokers who hang out anyway. So we can chat, you know, I'll leave a little more water. I'll even put on my glasses so I can see some of the questions a little better. But yes, now is the time we talk about my dog. And I made some, I did finally make some sourdough today. It's been a couple weeks that I haven't made sourdough, but I made some and I kind of experimented a little. I cheat when I make sourdough because, you know, my sourdough never rises enough. Although somehow I love making bread. I've made bread for years. But somehow when I make sourdough, I swear to God, and maybe it's putting it in the fridge, because typically you'd put it in the fridge for a couple of days because it really develops, well, at least a day. So it really develops a nice flavor. Sourdough, you don't do too many days, but a day in the fridge to develop flavor. And I find when I put my dough in the fridge, I think the dough starts to come apart, because my loaves, they spread, but they don't rise much. And if I let them rise too much, they literally start to fall apart on top. So these loaves I'll grab one maybe in a minute and show you. These loaves turned out okay, but my sourdough is always a denser bread. Very good and tasty, but sometimes I'm just in the mood for something light and fluffy, and my sourdough is never that. But what do you do? It's homemade bread. It's really good. Easy to make. I mean, it's easy. Doesn't take it. The time it takes is, of course, fresh yeast. Yeah. I buy, fresh, excuse me. Not fresh. And I don't buy cakes of yeast, but I buy the nice French stuff, the SAF yeast. And I bought 1 or 2 like bricks of it, and I keep them in the freezer. And that stuff, I've had it for 5 years in my freezer, and it works fine. And at first I was afraid that the yeast was the problem. I tested it. The yeast was fine. Yeah. So amazing. I mean, I keep it like double sealed in my freezer. No problem at all. So, but no, I love making bread. I think it's fun. I've got a little bread kneader. Salt risen bread. I don't know what that is. Interesting. I don't know what that is. I know I should do a bread TikTok. That'd be kind of interesting. Oh, thank you, Nini Elizabeth. I wasn't sure how to pronounce in my basement. Nope, I am in my living room. This is the living room of my apartment. Although I am visiting my mother for Easter, so you're going to get to see Mom's house that I will probably not have as nearly a fun backdrop, because my guess is I'll probably go in the bedroom upstairs or somewhere, because I don't want to do these in front of Mom. That would be just too weird. Thank you, TikTok folks, for that. That would just be too freaking weird. So I'm probably going to go to the room upstairs, which is very sparse. I'm going to probably have to buy another ring light. I know a lot of folks don't like the ring light because it gives you circles, but the ring light gives you light, and I'm dealing with the phone for TikTok and the computer for YouTube. So it's a little bright for YouTube, but I'm doing that because on the phone, it's perfect. But the ring light really works though for lighting in my apartment. It works perfectly. And it frankly helped. Like Mom's apartment's terrible. I tried doing these. I did do them at Mom's last November, December, but it just, I don't know. It's funny too, because like I like it looking a little more, I like having the ambiance behind. Having said that, that TikToker I always mentioned, Marcus DiPaolo, who's got 3 million followers, he does it against the blank wall. And the dude's got 3 million followers. So who am I with my 400,000 followers to say I know what's best? But something about making it more personal. I like having the background, and with the night lights. I've got sort of my little LEDs that I put in a few months ago, my Philips, that I really like, that give this wonderful glow and stuff. And anyway, just my thing. It makes me feel like it's a little more fun. But was somebody saying sending phones? Did I see? I lost it now. Sorry. Looking at a comment on YouTube, and I lost it. Still look at some of this. I do not teach. No, I do. I mean, I do. Sasha's good. Oh, sorry. Dog report. She is probably in her bed on the other side of my work desk, I'm guessing. That's usually where she is around now. It seems like around 8:30 or 8:40, she gets up, because typically around this time I brush her teeth. And she hates having her teeth brushed, but it's doggy toothpaste that basically is, not much better than peanut butter. I mean, I'm sure it's got some enzymes or something in it, but it tastes like peanut butter. So she thinks I'm giving her a treat, and she can never figure out, why am I putting my finger in her mouth? So it's like this mixture of, she gets excited, but then annoyed. So anyway, and then I give her a little treat afterwards. So she shows up around now. She kind of wakes up from her nap and is like, oh. Dogs are funny that way. They're very, they know, their sense of timing is very good. And they learn when they get treats, and they get really pissed off if you sort of forget to give them their treat. It always cracks me up, or the neighbors that give them treats too, like the dry cleaner down the block. I don't really do dry cleaning anymore, but when I did, they carry dog treats. The first time I went in there, every time I'd walk by, she'd drag me in. And there's a hardware store nearby that does the same thing. They give dog treats. Every time I go by, we're across the street, and she tries to cross the street, and I'm like, I'm not going into the hardware store. I don't need anything. But they're very nice. So we'll go in sometimes. I might just give her a small treat. She dragged me in, and they're nice. And I think they like it anyway, because, again, they're dog people, which is nice. So they enjoy having the dogs around. Yep, I saw the Trump phone record thing. At this point, I'm not getting into U.S. politics overall. I mean, I did. No, I'm not retired. I can't afford to retire. No, I mean, right now, literally, this is what I'm doing right now. I've worked for myself since 1997. For a year, I went to work at the UN, hated it, and left the UN. But otherwise, no, you mentioned that, Debbie. No, I've been verified for a long time on Twitter. Yeah, it wasn't recent. Nope, not on my Twitter. Nope. But I've been working for myself forever, and clients. All no, I do not give my sourdough starter a name. Do you? I sometimes have clients. It depends. But recently, what I like to do, and I've done on and off, is things like this. I find sort of campaigns to jump on. I've done a lot of LGBT campaigns in the past, but historically, it's been difficult to get paid for them because they're things that I identify and go, wouldn't it be cool if, and I do it and it works and it gets a lot of media attention and there's no money because there just isn't. I had some really big LGBT campaigns, but back in 1998 and 2000, when literally the only way to get donations was people mailing me checks. And I literally would have a couple hundred checks and you're just going, oh, I mean, of course, thank you. But you're literally going, oh my God. 200 checks and back then you had to sign them and deliver them to the bank. I mean, it was you couldn't do it online anyway. But now with PayPal, even with TikTok, YouTube, you guys on YouTube, that's why I mentioned the super chat or the stickers on TikTok. Every time you guys do those little gifts, it's making a donation for me. And I will say I think the last month, I don't think I have enough to pay my bills, but it's at least close, which we're going to see. We're going to see because it hasn't sort of happened yet. But when Ukraine kicked in and we decided to do the lives, the income got better on both YouTube and TikTok to the point where I might make enough to pay my bills. I mean, I've got money in the bank, so I would pay my bills anyway. But my dream with all of these campaigns, and I do call this a campaign. I mean, I've been doing TikTok anyway, but when the war started, when the war was heating up, I was getting very interested and concerned. And then when the war started, I said, you know what? I'm doing Ukraine. I'm only doing Ukraine for right now on TikTok. And then we decided to do YouTube as well, and Facebook and Twitter. So that's what I'm doing. Anyway, I'm not retired, but I've always been sort of internet politics guy, has been my mantra since 1995. Those little trolls on YouTube are still trying. Yeah, so no, but I support myself by you guys sending me those cute things on TikTok and by you guys doing the super chats and the super stickers. So thank you all. As I said, it's been working. I appreciate it. My goal is that basically, thank you, Mary. My goal would be, I want a bigger audience anyway, because you have more impact. And it's funny. I was talking to a cousin of mine and he was talking about ways of growing this business. And I was I kept thinking, I want more followers because then I can get a lot more done. And for example, if we're raising money for some of the charities and stuff, we can raise even more. And he's thinking, yeah, but how are you going to make money? And that's always been my problem. I mean, I've done civil rights work forever. And you just, the reason you get into civil rights is because you don't often think about money as the first thing. I mean, I like nice things, obviously, but you don't think about money, and it kind of is to your detriment. And this is also a problem maybe of people who think this way. I think people who try to be more generous don't necessarily have a business mindset. And maybe if we did, we'd be better at it. I wonder, if in the past we found, I had a Patreon. The problem is we have a podcast we're shutting down. I mean, I do have, I'll put it up, but the mods can put it up as well. They put it up. I put it on YouTube and on TikTok. You can find it via the link in my profile. That little link slot in my profile. It says beacons.ai is the link. And it takes you to a page that has all the different links to various things. You can donate to the top one is my friend Vlad, who is the Ukrainian, who's collecting donations and doing humanitarian aid directly for people there. He's finding people who need help finding housing, need help paying for housing. He gave a chunk of change to an organization in Kharkiv, the town he's from, that's getting bombed, the one northeast by the Russian border that's getting bombed all the time. And they deliver food, clothing and medicine to people who can't get it. And like 70% of the city is on government aid, like they can't get food. So he gave some money to help them prepare more food and get more medicine to deliver to people. And as I said, tomorrow, Vlad is talking to a woman, or he's been already talking to her, but he wanted to check with me. It's funny because I was like, you guys are donating it to Vlad and Vlad can decide. This is, I'm not running it, but he asked me, did I think you guys would like helping this woman afford a large vehicle? I'm intentionally being vague because I worry about the security issues. To find a large vehicle which will permit her to go into one of the large Ukrainian towns that's being bombed by the Russians, and there's a lot of people in trouble there who haven't been getting food and water, and she's going to basically do like a caravan or whatever of refugees and get them out of the town. And I said, yes, I think you would be good with, first of all, your money was for humanitarian. And I said, helping people escape a city is totally cool. I love that you're doing it. And yes, that is the kind of thing I said, as long as it's humanitarian, that's what we said we wanted to. So I got chills even telling you. Again, hopefully this woman's successful, getting in and out of these towns that the Russians are fighting in is scary. Just the courage of this woman even doing this, that you're going to go to a town and try to basically sneak in to help sneak people out who are in trouble. God, these Ukrainians, man. In any case, that's that first link you'll see in my TikTok links that says Vlad. That's Vlad, my friend Vlad. Or here I've got Vlad's PayPal. So if you want to send it directly to Vlad, he knows that's why he's getting it. So feel free to send him a note because he's been appreciating the notes he got, because initially we were raising money for Vlad and his wife and his kid and his family because they are also internally displaced refugees. They had to flee Kharkiv that was getting bombed. And he's got a wife, but also a 3-year-old daughter, elderly parents, and there was no way he was going to leave them in the town, and they wouldn't leave without him. So that's why they're in another part of Ukraine now. But I've got my PayPal, my Venmo, my Cash App. You can use those to donate to support my work. Also, if you put a note, if you prefer using those and you put a note there that says for Vlad, I have just been then taking the money, moving it to PayPal and sending it directly to Vlad. I'd prefer you give the money directly to Vlad because it's just easier, but nonetheless, if you want to do it that way, just tell me, because otherwise that's how you make a donation to me. So whatever, long story short on the donation thing. But yeah, I'm doing this full time and I just hope I can build it big enough, which I think would just be so cool to build this big enough that, and thank you, call name, Norwegian Kroner, I'm assuming. You're fabulous. That we can just keep building this stuff. And then, I am doing it full time now. I'm spending all day just following the news, doing my updates throughout the day on the video. And then about hour and a half before I start to prepare, I wouldn't say a script, but like today I've got 3 pages like this of notes, or 4 pages today actually of notes like this of the various topics and the background. I even did one today. I was being very good. The last 2 days, I did a write-up about wheat from Russia and Ukraine, just in case somebody brought it up, because you guys have brought it up before. So I have my backgrounder about Russia. Oh, thank you. Now that I've not seen the video game thing on TikTok. That's cool. So anyway, I want to do this full time. I can afford to do it full time for now. You guys have been chipping in, which is making it affordable. And were I able to turn this into a long-term news thing, that would be pretty cool. And then I just have to decide, how do I do it? Because Ukraine, I want to keep apolitical. Well, we're all political in the sense that we are supporting Ukraine and we are not supporting Russia. So when people say like we're objective, we're not really objective. In the sense that we are taking a side. But I like the fact that we're not getting into the whole Republican-Democrat thing. I tell people I don't want them getting into the Biden bashing. I don't want them getting into the Trump bashing. Not on this. This is too important. And frankly, it's too cool that we brought everybody together. Not we, we have, but also that the country, Tucker Carlson's being an idiot, but otherwise people have been really, Republicans in Congress, they've been really good about this, about wanting to support Ukraine. If anything, they're criticizing Biden and saying he's not doing enough, but at least we're all on the same team. Long-term, I've got to think, for this, when the war is over, what do we do? Do I make it about international relations? If I go domestic, do I try to keep it more apolitical? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Sorry. I was saying That is what is appealing with your content. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm going to guess you mean trying to make it not as not taking sides as much and telling you what's actually going on. The thing that's hard though is like, if you're talking about U.S. domestic policy, it gets hard because Donald Trump, okay? The news today, somebody posted that about the 17 and a half missing minutes from his phone, or not his phone, 7 hours of missing phone records the day of the insurrection. Okay, I call it an insurrection. That already is political. Some of you will say it is. Others are going to say, don't use that word, right? And how do I even report that story in a way that doesn't piss half of you off? So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to think of post-Ukraine, because I enjoy doing this and I'd like to keep doing it. And again, if I can get a bigger audience, it makes it affordable. I can just keep doing this and actually make enough to keep putting money in my retirement would be lovely, because then someday I can retire. Currently, my retirement just isn't big enough. I've always worked for myself. It's okay. The irony is, for Americans, my retirement, IRA or whatever is probably considered big for an American, but it's not big enough to like survive 30 years. My mom's 92. My dad was 88. All my grandparents were 93. I mean, my mom and dad's parents were 93 and 94. There's a chance I could be 90 and sickly and need my money. So like, I've been very worried about and not just me, that's a whole policy issue for Americans as well. Europeans, I'm assuming you're in better shape than us, but it's very scary for an American. And yeah, feel free to sign, Dharma. Thanks for joining us, Dharma. Feel free to sign off or log off. We don't mind. We're just chatting right now, guys. But for Americans, it's really scary to worry about retirement, because in the old days we had pensions. Like the company you'd retire and the company would give you a certain amount of money each month. And my dad had that, but my dad's gone now. Right now he'd be 94 years old. I mean, it was 50 years ago or 60 years ago that he got that pension. Nowadays we have to save our own money and put it away, and you hope to God it's enough. But for it to be enough, I mean, you need a hell of a lot of money. It's a whole analysis. Basically, you can take out, like, now they're saying to be safe, 3% a year of your nest egg you can take out for expenses. But if you take any more than 3% a year, you could be in trouble. Now, again, it depends where you live too. DC is horrifically expensive. I could try to move somewhere else. I've thought about it. I kept thinking Florida, but frankly, the COVID thing just scared me in Florida. I don't want to be a senior in Florida. That just scared. I took COVID very seriously. That scared me. But who knows? Maybe I'd go somewhere else. So what else? I'll give you. We'll go for 40 after the hour. We'll go for another 4 minutes. Sorry, put my glasses on again so I can see the. Yeah, well, he accepted less to have survivor benefits. Yeah, that's the interesting thing too. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's scary. It's scary. I mean, my dad had a good pension, although it's ironic because now today. I remember thinking my dad made so much money, and now today it's like, because the house is paid off, because of things like that, mom can afford to live, and dad's gone too, so she needs less food. But it's still, my mortgage. I mean, my mortgage is, well, I'm trying to think what it is totally in DC. And my apartment's 1-bedroom apartment. Okay, I do not live in the Taj Mahal. I've got a 1-bedroom apartment, but in DC. I think I get confused because you have a condo, you've got, in America at least, you've got a fee you pay to the condo because we have to pay for the lights in the hallway. We have to pay for the electricity in the hallway. If we had to fix our front door, all of us owners have to pay for it, right? Combined, I think maybe I pay $2,200 a month, maybe, for my housing. And that's just for the, my taxes and everything. Maybe $2,300. And that's very good. Once upon a time, it was almost $3,000. And over the years, I've refinanced my mortgages. I mean, that's still a crazy amount of money. I mean, it's not crazy if you live in New York or Paris or London nowadays, I guess, but that's a lot of money, and insurance. Don't even get me talk about insurance. Oh my God. Health insurance in America. I decided to go for the cheaper insurance, one step cheaper now. I used to get the best. My one step cheaper insurance costs me $1,100 a month for my insurance. I mean, it's working on your own. It's excellent insurance. And again, thanks to Obamacare, I wouldn't have insurance if it wasn't for Obamacare. I mean, I'm not dying, but I have so many, between my asthma and all these other things, I have so many conditions that when I moved to New York and back, they wouldn't have given me insurance again. I mean, that's the way our insurance system used to work in America. It was terrible. But still paying $1,100 a month just for the premiums. And then, then I've got a $1,500 deductible. So that's all cash. And then afterwards is 10% or 20% up until my annual limit. So what happened last year was I maxed out, meaning I had paid $14,000 or $15,000 total for premiums and healthcare I needed. And then my insurance at that point says, okay, you still have to pay the premiums every month of $1,100, but at least your healthcare is free for the rest of the year. I mean, it's crazy. So imagine paying $14,000, $15,000 a year between your premiums and your healthcare. It's crazy, And that's not just DC, because Illinois was even more expensive. It depends. Arizona is terrible. I think there was really expensive. You guys know this. It's really, oof. How are the hospitals faring in Ukraine? I don't know. I do know, Walter Schubert's asking, I do know Walter, yeah, sorry. Anyway, Tommy, thank you for that. Yeah, it's funny. Sorry. I read Tommy's question, but I didn't actually read it out loud. Sorry, guys. Tommy had written that he thinks being able to have a discussion without leaning left or right is really important, and I think would be a platform many people would subscribe to. No, I'm going to try. I have a background where I can be very partisan, but I also wrote for The Economist for a while, The Economist magazine, and I had to be unbiased and objective, and I was writing about the use of the internet in politics, and it was fun. I liked it. And it was weird because I knew I had to step back and sort of present, well, with The Economist too, which is, I think, what I would do with you guys. With The Economist, there still is an opinion to their news reporting. They still take kind of a perspective on the story, but they're not beating you to death with it. It's not like you're a Democrat or a Republican kind of thing. And I'm going to explore if there's ways for me of doing that because, and I am trained as a lawyer and I am able to see both sides. I just don't always agree with both sides. Whereas with Ukraine, it's been easy peasy, right? There's no both sides with Ukraine. So anyway, but yeah, thanks for saying that, Tommy. I forgot what else were we saying? Any guests coming? No guests coming. Yeah, national health insurance, but you could buy. Yeah, I know France has that. France has national health insurance, but you can purchase extra. I think Canada does too, I think. But in France, you can purchase extra to cover the remaining part or whatever. But even the national health insurance in France is pretty darn good. Our Medicare does that here in the States for seniors. Once you're 65, you're eligible for it's socialized healthcare, really, in America, but you still pay 20% and your prescriptions, and there's all this kind of crazy stuff, and you can pay extra, like $250 a month, or I don't know what, to have a plan that then captures the stuff the initial plan doesn't capture. It's exactly like the system in France, from what I know, and maybe it's that way for you guys as well. I don't know, but oh, that's interesting. New Mexico, was talking about giving money back because gas prices were so high. Yeah, the gas price thing is hard. I mean, now I will say it was funny before, not funny, interesting, because I looked into this because I was kind of curious before the war, like why were gas prices going up? What was going on? And what the experts I was finding were saying is that it was a couple things. First of all, the economy's back, and the economy being back means people are using gas, and we weren't using gas. More people are going back to work. People are still working at home, but I know, like a friend of mine working for the U.S. government, next month, they're going to start going back to work, and it's going to be 1 day a week to start with, and they're going to gradually go in, right? But that means mass transit is going to get busier and more buses and trains. That means more people are driving to work. Just more businesses opening, where we go places now. We travel more. I was terrified to fly with COVID. Now I'm flying 4 or 5 times a year to see mom. But I didn't see mom for over a year because of COVID, because I was afraid of flying, but I was more afraid of killing her at age 92, right? Whereas now I've had all my shots and I'm more comfortable. So anyway, one big problem was demand for gasolines did spike. The other problem was, and I forget the exact amount, but let's say if the U.S. Gasoline production was here before COVID, it dropped to here during COVID because demand wasn't there. It simply wasn't there. And at the time, a couple months ago when I looked into this, we had only recouped demand by 50%. So demand had dropped by X, and we only had 50% come back. So we still, 50% of what we lost was still lost. Now, that doesn't mean 50% of the total, but of the stuff we lost during COVID, it didn't come back. Now, why did it come back? Because, in part, Wall Street wanted its money. And Wall Street said, we don't want you investing in future pumps for some day that oil and gas will be needed again. We want you to give us dividends and pay back the loans and everything else. So they pushed the oil and gas companies to pay back the loans and everything. So the money went to the lenders, and it didn't go towards investing in what we would need now to have more gas and oil being pumped. So, or made, in the case of gas, I guess you pump oil. So anyway, that was very interesting. Actually, that's the kind of thing I could do a TikTok about in the future. I did a TikTok before the war started about that I think is a more objective analysis that you could do one saying, well, let's actually look at the experts and figure out what's happening. The problem is also there's not a lot you can do about gas prices as well. That's the really bad thing, that no president can do much about it. And then there's the war, and it's true. The war is causing higher gas prices, and we have to decide as a nation if we're willing to stomach that. I mean, I'm willing to pay higher prices. Then again, I'm privileged that I can afford that. I'm not living, person to person, Oops, 1 second. I'm going to just see what Walter is sending me here. One quick sec. Oh, wow. Walter was in Lviv. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about, sorry, I'm going to put it up here so folks can see, but yeah. So Walter was over in Lviv in Western Ukraine, and the hospital system needs a lot of stuff. Yeah, Walter, let's talk outline. Are you the Walter Schubert I know? Or are you just another Walter Schubert? Because I know a Walter Schubert from years ago. But either way, either way you can email me. You're on Facebook. If you can message me on Facebook. Otherwise, my email is my last name @gmail. So you can just email me. Oh, so you are that? Okay, you are Walter. We probably have each other's info, Walter. Anyway, if that's you, yeah. Well, first of all, you probably have my info or my phone number anyway. If you don't, it's aravosis@gmail. So just send me an email. But yeah, I'd like to talk to you about that because one of the things, in terms of doing more humanitarian work for Ukraine, I was preferring you guys send the money to Vlad because I wasn't quite sure. Okay, for example, if we ship things over there, what does that mean? That's extra expense. It's, good to see you too, Walter. You definitely contact me afterwards. But if we have to ship things, that can be more confusing. If we're shipping things, does that make this more like a business where we need a nonprofit or something? Whereas if you're simply giving Vlad a gift, you're literally giving a humanitarian gift to somebody. There's no tax, you don't get a deduction, but there's no tax implication for any of you. Vlad's not getting income either. It's just a gift. And even the money coming to me, if you send it to my PayPal and say it's a gift for Vlad, it's just a gift. Because, for example, you can give me gifts, but if you give me money for my this is sort of the whole legal tax stuff, because I'm a stickler about doing taxes legally. I'm always afraid of being audited. But if you give me money for my TikTok and you say, I love your TikTok, here's a donation, that's work. That's payment. You're paying me for my work. If you're doing it because, I have a major surgery and I tell you on TikTok, guys, I've got a surgery, I can't afford it. Could you help me raise $2,000? That money isn't taxable. Now, I'm not giving you tax advice. I'm saying my interpretation of the taxes for myself, because you literally wouldn't be giving me money to say, keep doing TikTok. You'd be giving me money to say, oh my God, we want to help you with your surgery. And I look at this Ukraine thing as the same way, that you're not giving me money for TikTok and I'm not taking any of it. The money, and mind you, you've sent me about $3,000. So if the IRS gets pissy, if I owe $700, $800, I'll let you guys know. But I'm not worried about it. But in any case, Walter, I was sort of telling the longer story because it's been easier to just have the money go to Vlad because we trust him, and therefore he's been able to find vendors and everything else. But I would love if there's ways of helping hospitals. And maybe it is just sending them the money, or if there's a way of sending it to a company here that ships stuff over. I just worry about shipping stuff and whether it takes too long. I don't know, whether stuff gets there. I know Well, I can talk to you about it offline. I have some input on different countries and how easy it is to ship stuff and everything else, but I would love to talk to you about it. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. As always, I did this later than I promised. I went for an hour and 50 minutes, 5-0. I keep saying I'm not gonna, but I do. Tomorrow, we can stay at 7 o'clock this week. I still want to try 8 o'clock at some point and see if I get more Americans. But I hate losing the Europeans. All right, this is the week we'll stay at 7, and then next week I'm going to play a little bit with the hour and see. For example, do we get more people at 8 o'clock? I know we're going to lose some of the Europeans, but do we get more other people? Maybe, I don't know. So, anyway, come to Canada. I know it's free in Canada. Somebody said, come to Canada. It's free. No. The only thing with Canada is funny is, even in America though, here, good luck seeing a specialist here. I had a very scary thing several years ago and had to go to a specialist. First of all, I had to find the right specialist because it was a scary thing. It wasn't just like, go to the local blah, blah. To get to see, he actually, which I was surprised, my doctor was able to get me in to see him in 3 weeks. Mind you, imagine them giving you a scary medical diagnosis and they tell you, well, you can't go to the doctor for 3 weeks, and you're going, right? Then I wanted to get a second opinion. And in order to get a second opinion from some of the experts, I literally asked friends of mine with some of the big pharmaceutical companies who were big people there, who knew big doctors who could basically say, hey, we're vouching for this guy, doctor, would you see him? But to see the top experts, good luck in this country. I mean, good luck finding them, good luck traveling to them, and good luck them seeing you because they're busy. So Canada, I will tell you, Canada, and good luck seeing a dermatologist. Oh my God, I remember calling dermatologists and them going like, we've got something available. Like if I were calling now, we've got something available in July. I'm like, July, like this summer? Yeah. Like that's 3 or 4 months away. Yeah. Like, okay. A lot of my specialists, usually it's like a 3 to 6 month wait here. So, it can happen here too. But I will say, no, I was in Canada and got sick when I was camping, and it ended up being nothing. I had a flu or something, but I literally, came to this small town on the boundary waters, Minnesota, Canada, came to the small Canadian town, and I was like, I'm from the US. I don't know where to go. I was really getting sick. I said, I'm really getting sick. I'm getting a little worried. I went to the pharmacy. I said, can you recommend a doctor? And they said, oh yeah, Doc so-and-so across the street. Tell him I sent you. I said, do I need to make an appointment? They said, just go over. I went over and he goes, oh yeah, the pharmacy called. No problem. No, maybe I waited 15 minutes. Saw the guy. He was great. He said, no, you're fine. You probably have flu, but I'm giving you something because I had like bad stuff going on. He goes, I'm giving you something to calm that down and whatever the pain. And I said, oh, okay, because he was like, okay, bye. And I was like, do I pay you? I mean, in America, the first thing they do is they like get your wallet. And he said, no. But some Canadians explained to me that basically because I'm a foreigner, he wouldn't even know how to bill the government to be reimbursed by me, which actually made me feel even worse because then he wasn't getting paid at all. I should have offered I'm sure if I offered him cash, he wouldn't take it. But I felt bad. I was like, are you sure? And I mean, at the time I was 25. I wasn't that much of a kid, but that was my nice. So I will say I was very impressed with the Canadian experience. Also, I had a wonderful experience in France too. I had a retinal detachment. That was really scary in France and had to get surgery there. Had to stay for almost 3 months because you can't fly after a retinal detachment. Although 3 months of being stuck in Paris, trust me, you could do worse. It was fabulous. But because I have friends there, I studied there. But the surgery ended up costing me total $2,500. And because the dollar euro was pretty much the same at that point. So $2,500. And my doctors here told me, they were like, oh, this would have easily been, 25,000 here in the States. With my insurance, with my old insurance, maybe I would have had to pay. Oh no, that was my bad. That was pre-Obamacare. That insurance I would have owed at least probably $3,000 there in the States with my insurance. But mind you, I'm paying $1,000 a month for insurance. Anyway, it was great. And then my American insurance actually covered it. So I only had to pay 10%. So basically, I had a $2,500 bill from France, and my insurance said, pay us $250 and we'll pay the rest. Or they paid me back for the rest. So that was great, and unusual for American insurance. But the French system, we should have a half-hour TikTok where I talk about my experience in the French hospital. It was, really bad-looking hospitals. They're kind of scary. The nurses are evil incarnate. They're literally demons. France has this. I love France. France has this little power issue, though, where anybody who's got a little power becomes a little Napoleon, and they've got to wield the power over you. And we have people like that here in the States, too, and I hate people who wield their power over you. So in France, no matter where you go, the person in the store, you're not, customer doesn't come first. She owns that store. You're working for her when you come in. There's just this little sort of, bonjour madame, kind of pecking order, but the nurses were evil. The doctors were fabulous. I said I wasn't going to talk much longer. I'm not going to talk too much longer. But my doctor, for my surgeon, for my eye surgery, and it was real surgery, general anesthesia, she gave me her cell phone number and said, if you have any questions about the surgery, just call me. And she goes, weekends are fine too. And I'm like, your cell phone? She goes, yeah, why not? I said, doctors don't give you their cell phone numbers in the States. I've never had a doctor do that, ever. And call me on the weekend if you're worried about anything. I'm like, okay, sister, no problem. I never called her, but she was just lovely, this woman. Absolutely lovely woman. But yeah, no, so she was great, but the nurses were literally something out of Catch-22, out of just, thank you, famous. But my nurse, I'll tell you, okay, the last little story. So I have the eye surgery. I wake up because it was basically they had to go to the back of my eye on the outside and stitch something on the back of my eye. So to do it, imagine how do you get to the back of your eyeball, right? It was painful. Well, it's funny. It's bothering me a little today even, but it was, I woke up excruciating pain. It just felt like there was pain going into my brain, but I'm sure it was behind the eye. I had a morphine drip. The morphine wasn't doing a lot for me. And also I was getting nauseous. So I was getting sick to my stomach and this pain. So I ended up waking up at 3. I kept telling the nurses, and the nurses just literally think you're a PITA. So I'm just yet another pain in the ass person who's complaining in the hospital. Thank you for the sorting hat. So I tell the nurse, I was like, madame, mais vraiment, je crois que je suis malade. I'm like, I really think I'm sick. And she's like, I guess we could see the doctor. I said, well, no, first I was like, could you just ask the doctor, is it normal? And I speak fluent French. So at least thank God I spoke French. I said, could you ask the doctor, is it normal for the pain to be this bad in my head? It feels like something's in my eye. And because maybe it is, I don't know. And she says, well, it's difficult because he's working the emergency room. Again, you're like, have you heard of a telephone? But you don't want to say it because Nurse Ratchet is going to kill you if you say, have you heard of a telephone, right? So I was like, well, can we get a hold of him? She goes, well, we could go down there. And I said, let's go down there. So 3 a.m. And at this point, I still wore glasses. I also had cataract surgery of all crazy things for somebody young. At this point, I still had glasses, and they were very strong glasses, -10 prescription, very strong eyeglasses. One eye is poked out, or not even poked out. I've got a patch on one eye, so I can only see with one eye. I've got my glasses on because I can't see. My glasses are on the tip of my nose, so literally there's an area like this. This is what I can, because my vision's terrible. So this is the area I can see around me. I'm like a Borg on Star Trek. I'm dizzy because I'm literally woozy. My head hurts, and this nasty woman is making me carry my IV drip. So I'm having to hold on to my own IV drip. And I asked her, and I was like, and thank God I knew the word for wheelchair. I was like, madame, il n'y a pas de chaise roulante? Like, there's no wheelchair? No. I literally felt like this woman was just having fun with me. So I'm walking down the hall. I'm woozy as hell. I literally feel like there's an iron poke in my eye. I've got this, you're wearing one of those gowns, of course, that has you half naked. But at this point, I'm like, see what you want, world. 3 a.m. I'm walking down the hall to go to the emergency room, and I'm starting to pass out. literally. And again, another, I think it's évanouir en français, je crois. I think it's évanouir. And I was like, madame, thank God I knew that word. I was like, I'm starting to pass out. And so she grabbed me. And then, and I will never forget this. And I think, I'll tell you, I'm not trying to be snobby to speaking French, but if you speak French, you'll appreciate this. But I'll tell you in English. But in French, it's even ruder, I think. She goes to her friend, oh, mais vraiment, je crois qu'il est vraiment malade. And she's going, you know what? I think he might actually be sick. Meaning, she totally didn't believe me. She was totally making me do all the work because I was being a pain in the ass. And because I literally started fainting in the hallway and she grabbed me, she goes, I think he's sick. So she gets me back to the bed, calls the doctor, and of course, the doctor never freaking shows up. So my doctor comes in the morning. The pain has receded, thank God. My stomach is still flipping. And she tells me, she says, I think you're having a reaction to the morphine. That's what this is. And I'm like, thanks. Like the nurse couldn't have told you that. So yeah, the painkillers they were giving me, I was having, and I don't know whether the pain was a reaction, but the nausea was absolutely the morphine, she said. I mean, literally all night, I was just like, I want to be sick. So yeah. But having said that, very cheap. And when I got back to the States, my eye doctor here looked at my surgery, because they can tell, looked at the surgery and said, where did you have this done? I was like, Paris? Because this is amazing. He goes, no, because this is a difficult surgery. He goes, like, she did this incredibly well. Okay, because he was explaining, like, apparently it's very hard to hit the spot where the tear is because you hit it from behind and there's this whole thing. And that she did it so perfectly, he was amazed. And so, you know what? God bless France. I mean, it was cheap. The nurse was horrific. The hospital was scary because it literally looks like something out of 1950s Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, I was there with an eye problem and the blinds weren't working. So one of the blinds was missing in my room and the sunlight is coming in and it's in my eyes and I can't see. And I'm like, madame, I'm here for an eye problem. Is there any way we could block the sunlight? No, the curtains just don't work. So my friend gets up there and gets a blanket and literally ties the blanket up and got it to stay, thank God. I mean, it ain't the Taj Mahal, okay? It ain't the Taj Mahal. And this was actually a very good, this was the 15 in Paris, which is this very famous eye hospital that goes back to the 1300s or so. Back when the hospital had 80 beds. So it was, not 80 beds. 15 is, I'm tired. Is it 300? 15? 15 times 20. 200 plus 50, 300. Yeah, 15. So it's called the 15 because in the old days, 15 was the way you said 300, 1520. Now in French today, like I'm doing my French lesson now, but in French today, you still have that with like 80, well, French, 80, meaning 80, means 420s. So apparently the numbers used to go higher and they had 15, which was 300. So it's called the 15 because they had 300 beds back in the, I don't even know, the 1300s or the 1400s, and the hospital stayed until then, which is pretty cool. So that is my French lesson of the day. Oh, you got to be careful for retinal detachments. It's funny. I wrote a big blog post on my blog at the time about it, and literally there were a couple people who read my blog who said, oh my God, I'm having symptoms. And I think both of them, the doctor said, yeah, you've got a retinal detachment. Because a retinal detachment is dangerous because you don't feel pain, because you don't have a lot of nerves in the eye, at least there for the retina. If it rips, you don't know because you don't feel pain. And once it rips, the rip just continues because the fluid of your eye just keeps, it's almost as if, skin, I hate to say skin being peeled, but literally it just keeps peeling. The symptoms for retinal detachment, among other things, floaters. Now, I've had floaters since I was a kid. I had floaters back when nobody believed floaters were real. Because I remember going to the eye doctor, I was like 7, 8 years old. And I told her, I can see these things in my eye and I can make them go back and forth. Like literally, I said I can go like this and they go this way. And she just goes, yeah, well, you must be really special or something. I mean, a rude doctor. And I'm like, okay, well, eventually, of course, they figure out these are floaters, whether it's blood, pieces of blood or whatever. Well, I have a horrific number in my eye to the point where if I'm writing something or doing something with Photoshop, I literally sometimes have to go like this to knock them out of the way because they just interfere with my vision. It sucks, but what do? It's like big blurry spots that just kind of move around. So they're blurry, so I can still see you, but it'll knock out a letter occasionally. It's really nasty. But a sudden influx of floaters is something you might want to have checked out. Like out of nowhere, you've got floaters. You go, hey, that's weird. I didn't have them before. Seeing bright lights in your eye, you go immediately to the doctor. So like if you're seeing snowflakes, a friend of mine had that. He literally was like, I'm seeing snowflakes. At the time, this was almost 30 years ago. I didn't know back then that this is what it was. He was having a retinal detachment. If you are seeing flashes of light, which is really weird too, because like the other night we had the beginnings of a thunderstorm, but we shouldn't have had a thunderstorm in March. So I didn't think it was a thunderstorm. And I'm like sitting watching TV and I'm occasionally going like this. And you end up thinking you're crazy because you're like, okay, either I'm about to go blind or we may have a thunderstorm coming. But that's another thing. Starbursts, exactly. Just bright lights in your eyes that shouldn't be there. Very dangerous. So the danger of the retinal detachment is you will not feel the pain. And once it starts to detach, it can really detach. And then my sister had a really bad detachment. They were able to reattach the retina. She lost I don't know how much to tell you, like this much of her vision in front of her face in one eye. And it's a pretty big spot, but both eyes coming together, she's fine like this, but there's something over here I think she doesn't see. Pretty big. My spot is so small that I think we found it once, actually. We did like an eye test and you had to look where all the dots were. And we found it was the dots over here or somewhere, but it was very small, so it doesn't affect my vision at all. But in any case, very dangerous. It can look like glitter, but it can also be lightning. Like I saw flat, meaning the sky lit up. Like I was seeing a little bit of that, but not really. Very dangerous. Yeah. Actually, we have a German friend in Paris who went blind that way. And this was years ago, but he was in Germany. It was happening to him. He went to the doctors and the doctors didn't take it seriously. Like he went to the emergency room and they said, well, he was seeing the lights and everything. So, well, it's no big, just see your doctor on Tuesday or whatever. And he goes to the doctor on Tuesday. And it was too late. The retina detached, blind in one eye. So they tell you it is an emergency. And the last thing I'll tell you, not to scare you, but this is good info. You certainly don't go to your regular doctor and you do not go to an optometrist. You do not go to the doctor that gives you glasses. That is a huge mistake. Do not do it. If you have fear of this, you go to a specialist. You go to an ophthalmologist. You know what I mean? You go to you go to a retinal doctor. There are doctors who are literally retinal doctors. That's what they call them. And that's what you go to. I've had friends who have gone to their regular eye doctor and this is a specialty that your regular eye, that's how the poor guy in Germany went blind. Your regular eye doctor is not the expert on this. But yeah, I know saying diabetic neuropathy, I know that can be an issue. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Shots every few months. Oh, wow. That's horrible. Yeah. Ophthalmologist, but I would say even more retinal specialist. Exactly. That's what I would recommend. And they say, don't dally. I mean, it's an emergency. The good thing is because I had it in DC, the initial guy called here when I was having it. When I got back, I needed a retinal doctor and I was having it in Chicago once, and all the doctors I've called everywhere I've been, immediately they fit you in. They were like, can you come in 2 hours? Because this is an emergency and you are an emergency patient for the very things they cover. So they don't say wait a day. I mean, at the very worst, they would say go to the emergency room immediately. I mean, no kidding. I've occasionally dilly-dallied a little and went, well, I'll wait the next day and call the doctor. And they were very angry at me. They're like, no. Now, the emergency room sucks because I once had a horrific emergency room doctor here at George Washington. It's a teaching hospital. And honestly, they suck. I mean, it's the worst. It's your worst nightmare of a teaching hospital. Literally, this woman poked my eye for an hour and I was in agony with her poking me. And then she goes, well, we found a condition. We think we're going to have to do some surgery. And at this point I was like, we're calling my doctor. It was a Saturday night. So I didn't come. I called him and I got his on-call service. I said, it's an emergency. And I told myself, I feel horrible because I felt bad calling him. I said, I feel horrible calling you. I'm at GW. I saw floaters. I got worried. She now says she sees something. But I said, honestly, she's been poking my eye for an hour. She's scaring me. He gets on the phone with her. He gets back on with me and goes, you're leaving there. He goes, she's getting her attending in or whatever. I'm forgetting my Grey's Anatomy here. Whatever her guy who's like a 3rd or 4th year doctor who's like knows his stuff. She goes, he's coming in You're going to see him. He's going to check it out. And then he's calling me. And then we're going to decide what to do. Mind you, it's like 9:30 at night now. And he goes, and next time this happens, you are never going back there. You are calling me. And I was like, yeah, but what if it's the weekend? If it's the weekend, you're calling me. So the other guy checked it out. I was having a little bit of a tear. And I just happened to see a big floater. And I thought, it's one floater. I had a new tear in my retina. So this guy, God bless him, it's, mind you, 10 o'clock at night now. He talks to the other doctor. The other doctor was great. And my doctor says, okay, can you come in tomorrow morning, Sunday morning? Could you come in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for the surgery? I was like, yeah, 9 a.m.? It's an emergency. So no, I like my guy. He's a guy who does really quick visits, which I don't like. Like literally every 10 minutes is a new patient. I don't like that. But when you need him, he's there for you, you know? Yeah, I think an attending physician. I forget what you call it, but it was a fourth year physician, not a medical student. He was way above the crazy woman who was poking my eye for an hour and couldn't do whatever. But anyway, yeah, big deal for retinal detachment. So, all right, guys, yes, tomorrow 7 o'clock. I will set it up as soon as we get off now. I may cut a piece of sourdough just to try it. We shall see. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 7. All right. Thanks for doing this. And maybe tomorrow yell at me because this is long for me. I'm tired. I don't want to go too late, as I said, because I don't want to like burn myself out with this stuff. But this was good. All right, guys. I'm signing off. TikTok, putting you first. I didn't hang up on TikTok today. Congratulations for me. I finally figured out how to be careful. All right, there we go. And now, bye TikTok. YouTube, same deal. Thanks, guys. And